MTV did a lot for music before they went off the rails and became a carousel of crappy reality shows. And their greatest contribution might have been MTV Unplugged. The series featured artists performing stripped-down acoustic versions of their songs in front of intimate audiences. MTV Unplugged was revolutionary at the time. It produced 13 platinum records and let us hear artists in ways we never heard before. Clapton, 10,000 Maniacs, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys, LL Cool J, and Nirvana are just some of the amazing performances that people still talk about today. On this episode of Prisoners of Rock and Roll, we're unplugging the mics and taking a close look at MTV Unplugged. We're going to play cuts from some of our favorite episodes, talk about some of the most memorable performances in the show, and discuss how MTV revived the show during the pandemic. Let's hit it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Prisoners of Rock and Roll, episode number 26. How many oats could Hall & Oates haul if Hall & Oates could haul oats? Wow. I have no idea, but it doesn't matter. I'm Bruce Kramer, and I'm here tonight with my two colleagues, friends, partners in crime, Mr. Doug McCusker and Mr. Ryan McCusker.
What up?
Are you rocking out there?
We are also joined by a very, very special guest tonight, the Warden.
The Warden!
From the Prisoners of Rock and Roll,
Rob
Mr.
Owens.
Rob Owens. Welcome.
Welcome to the table, sir.
Rob.
Thank you. You guys definitely have faces for podcasts, that's for sure.
That was pretty impressive. You said that whole notes thing in one take.
It's been in my notes to read for like 5 episodes, so.
How many? Whole notes and notes and notes.
Prisoners of Rock and Roll is sponsored by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia, and our show is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Pantheon says that they are kind of like the MTV of musical podcasts, back when MTV was good. And tonight, we're talking about when MTV was good. This is our second episode on MTV.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about MTV.
Yeah, man. So
There was a lot.
This was like, I think this was on our topic list first. And then we decided we were going to do the bigger episode. I think it was episode 18 on MTV. Yeah. And now we're back to kind of zeroing in and talk about MTV Unplugged.
But this was such a big thing for us growing up. Like, everything was stripped down. You had bands like that never played Unplugged. Like, Nirvana never played Unplugged. Pearl Jam never really played a show Unplugged until this show. And it was an amazing phenomenon.
I used to look forward to it on Sunday nights.
Yeah.
You know, that would come on Sunday nights. That would come on, and then right after that, 120 minutes would come on.
This was my favorite show out of everything from MTV. I love acoustic music. I think the acoustic guitar is about as close to like God as you can get in terms of music. And then hearing these versions of things, I mean, you get to see bands in different ways or hear them in different ways you never got to experience.
I mean, obviously, MTV didn't come up with the whole concept of going acoustic bands. Like everybody, like the Grateful Dead did it. They have a whole album called Reckonings,
which is one of my favorite Grateful Dead albums,
too.
You
know, they just put it on MTV and made it really into something unique.
And you know, it really you get to see these artists who were all plugged in and the distortion and the big drums and this and that, and to strip it down and see actually how talented these guys were. Like, a lot of these guys would have to practice for months to do the show. Then you would have bands that didn't practice so much.
You had to be talented to play that show because you had nothing to hide behind.
Right, you couldn't bury it behind the noise. That's a great point.
And playing the acoustic guitar is way different than playing the electric guitar.
Yeah.
And I love the like covers are a big part of this, or different versions of stuff. Yeah. And it just, a couple of the artists that we're going to talk about tonight were like, they're like the last people you would ever expect to get up and do an acoustic show. And it was cool. It was great.
There's a few that I listened to, and it was like, holy shit, I never thought like Korn would make an Unplugged.
Did they do an Unplugged?
Yeah,
they did.
No kidding. It's unbelievable.
Jay-Z. Like Jay-Z's. I was listening to it driving over here.
Yeah, I saw I remember the Jay-Z one.
Yeah, Jay-Z had the Roots.
The Roots of his band.
Yeah, that was a big deal when he did that.
Yeah. It's so many of these, man. I was like, this was like a time machine for me because I was, I was listening to a lot of them, and a lot of the stuff that didn't come out as albums, you go find it on YouTube. And it was like, man, I remember watching this.
Yeah,
like,
I remember all that shit.
But I was talking to a friend of mine last night at the bar, and he told me, if you want to go out and watch some of these unplugs and you don't want to watch it on YouTube, the Paramount channel has the licensing for the Unplugged, the MTV's Unplugged.
Oh,
so if you have
cool.
the Paramount channel or the app or whatever, there's quite a few shows on there. Like the Nirvana's on there, the Pearl Jam's on there.
I'm gonna look at that. I wish like classic MTV would play like a bunch of them instead of playing like old 80 videos all the time. It seems like that's the only thing they do.
Yeah.
But if they would come out and play like the Nirvana one or the STP one or even the Aerosmith one.
Do you think there's like a licensing thing involved in all that?
Maybe, but MTV owns it because you
Sure,
know,
they aired it. It's
You
their
know?
property.
Yeah.
But then you had some artists actually release their album, like release the show as an album. Like,
Yeah, sure.
Like McCartney did it.
yeah,
Clapton
Nirvana
did it.
Alice in Chains.
Which is an amazing
Pearl Jam.
album.
Pearl
Jam.
Jam released it like recently.
Yeah, that
like
just
within
came
the last
out.
2 years.
It just came out. No, like in 2020 it came out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. I always loved that recording of the Pearl Jam Unplugged. Ultimately, it made me a fan right off the bat.
Yeah. So they're on the list. So the way we decided we're going to talk about this is we decided we're going to talk about a couple of the one that were albums. And then we have a list of just kind of like everything else. And we're going to tackle through that. But maybe before we do that, I'm going to back up a little bit. And I put together a couple. I was like, where did the idea come from? And there's even like debate.
There's a lot of speculation of where the idea came from.
Season 1, they said it was a singer-songwriter named Jules Shear said that he wanted to do an acoustic thing to promote an album he came out with. And I have no idea who this dude is.
Yeah, who the hell is he?
But he said that he says he got the idea when he saw John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora do 2 acoustic songs during the MTV VMAs.
That's what I always heard it was from.
And
I always
dude-
heard that they were influenced.
And this dude, Jules Shear was the host. They had a host the first season, so he was the host.
Was he the host?
Yeah.
Huh, I don't remember.
The 2 guys that produced it said no, they got the idea from seeing Springsteen
Right, I read
do
the same thing. Yeah.
an encore with just an acoustic guitar. And he said, I have a quote from the one guy, Bob Small. He said, please do not credit Bon Jovi for creating Unplugged.
Yeah.
John Bon Jovi thinks he was the inspiration for it. He wouldn't even do the fucking show for 20 years.
yeah, really.
And then they said, so wherever the idea came out, they pitched it to HBO.
And TBS.
And a whole, and
TBS, they both turned it
They
down.
turned it down and they took it to MTV.
Wow.
Well, MTV originally passed on it also. And then one of their friends, but MTV passed on it. And then somebody that they were friendly with, the 2 producers, she got a raise or another position, and she made it happen.
They made it happen.
Yeah, you think it would be a hit right off the bat? Like, yeah, that's a great idea.
I guess people weren't looking at acoustic music like that.
And you think about it, I mean, we talked about like how an Exile on Main Street recording in a house is commonplace now, but at the time it was revolutionary. Like nobody was doing this.
Nobody was.
Like these take these bands and unplug all the gear and
like how unique is sounding is the Nirvana Unplugged. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. The way that it's done. It's like, I mean, you can cut all this out.
No. You're dead on, dude.
Dead on.
Everything that was done about it, I could see it pictured in my head because of MTV.
I was thinking that exact. I was listening to it today, and I was having that exact. Like I'm experiencing Nirvana in a completely different way than you did listening to the other stuff.
Do you think it's? I'm sorry.
No. Well, the thing with the Nirvana thing is that with that Unplugged, none of those songs were really big hits. Like they didn't do Smells Like Teen Spirit. But in all reality, all those songs on Nevermind are fucking major hits.
But look at the hits they made off the acoustic album, the Bowie song, the Meat Puppets song.
But that's another thing I wanted to bring up. They did 4 covers.
Yeah.
They did
on
6
that.
covers.
Yeah,
They did 6 covers.
Yeah,
It's
Lead
6.
Belly.
Lead Belly.
Yeah. There's a Screaming Trees cover on there, or Mark Lanigan.
And he played with them on the stage, didn't he?
The Meat Puppets.
The
Yeah,
Meat
it came
Puppets
up.
did.
That's right.
So yeah, man. So there's been over 100 episodes of this, and the show started in '89, and it was like a regular show for 10 years, and then from 2000 to 2009, it was on like kind of once in a while, but less frequently. And then after 2009, it's been like this one-off stuff, and they brought it back last year. They called it MTV Unplugged at Home.
Okay.
During the pandemic. And I have some notes on that at the end. So there've been over 100 performances. 30 of them were released as albums. So we had a pretty wide, 13 of them went platinum. I'll run them off real quick. 10,000 Maniacs, Alice in Chains, Tony Bennett, Mariah Carey, Clapton, Lauryn Hill, Alicia Keys, Lale.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
It's my favorite album.
Ricky Martin, Nirvana. Ricky Martin's album Unplugged went platinum.
They have a huge Latin. They have a huge Latin.
That makes sense.
Was it in English?
Yeah. Page and Plant, Nirvana, Shakira. Shakira's, I believe, was in all Spanish. And Rod Stewart.
And it's really funny, two of those albums, Tony Bennett and Eric Clapton, both won Song of the Year and Album of the Year.
That Eric Clapton is the best-selling live album of all time. It's sold 26
Yeah,
million. It's sold more
Yeah.
than Frampton Comes Alive and all
Thank
that other.
God. Thank you, Jesus.
anything that beats out Frampton,
Yeah.
we're about.
I also made some notes on who was on the first season. So the first season too, they didn't even have, a lot of the episodes weren't one artist. They had two artists.
Yeah.
So they split it. So here's, the first episode was Sid Straw from Squeeze and Elliot Easton from The Cars. It wasn't even Rick Ocasek.
Wait, what is it about Squeeze?
I don't,
I know
why
does
song.
everybody bow down
who
to
are
them?
they? I don't even know who they are.
They say,
Tempted by the fruit of another.
Oh, they suck.
Yeah, they suck. But everybody gets down with them. Who knows? I know nothing. I know nothing. I don't know.
Here's the other artist on season 1. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Joe Satriani.
I remember
That's
that.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
forgot
I
all
remember
about that.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray totally
I gotta get
made a
copy
name
of that.
for himself.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Don Henley, Great White and Damn Yankees,
I remember that.
Elton John, Crosby, Stills and Nash, which is that's just a concert for them unplugged.
Yeah.
Rat and Vixen,
Really?
Black Crowes and Tesla,
I remember that.
the
That was a
Allman
good show.
Brothers and Poison. I listened to the Poison Unplugged this week.
Yeah.
Was it killer?
It's awesome, dude. It was so,
I
like,
remember that.
they're playing it and they're like, Bret Michaels is even like, I don't know how this is going to work, man, but let's just do it.
That's like the Flesh and Blood era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, they did like Talk Dirty to Me and
Yeah.
Skinny Bop,
Yeah.
and it was great. It was awesome, but I love Poison. So
I heard with the beginning of the concept, they couldn't get it through these musicians. They would show up to the rehearsal, like the bass player would have a bass, and
Right.
they're like, "You can't use that; it's electric." So they would run out to like Times Square's guitar shops and buy like acoustic basses and all that shit. Yeah, like
I guess it's such a concept to wrap your mind around, because now it's just like, oh, everybody kind of does it.
yeah, everybody kind of does it. But like when you show up with electric guitar, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to play it clean.
Yeah. But
You
you're
know?
talking about
Right.
like 89. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Right.
what did you have?
The
like, you
ovations.
had-
Ovations
yeah.
was huge.
Like, you had like, okay, you had like acoustic songs. Like, you had like, of course, Wanted Dead or Alive. You know what I mean? You had
Every Rose
like,
Has Its Thorn,
you had
Patience.
ballads. Yeah.
you know,
the ballady kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but not
Yeah.
not that. But these, you know, you're getting stripped down versions of like rock and roll songs.
right.
You know?
I think you had to be super talented to be on Unplugged.
Sure.
Like the musicianship is so important to
Yeah.
the show. Like MTV makes millions and millions of dollars off of what looks cool, but you had to go in there and sound cool.
Yeah.
You know,
You want to dive? So I put the ones that we agreed we wanted to talk about that were albums. I put them
Yeah.
in chronological order just because I had nothing,
Sure,
I couldn't
yeah.
think of else to do. So
Cool.
The first one that came out was in 1992, and that was Eric Clapton.
I remember this coming out and how huge deal it was. He just got clean. He was sober. But unfortunately, his son just died from that tragic accident that
Fell
he
out
had.
of like a 6-story
Story
window
higher
or
than
something,
that, yeah.
really high.
And that's
right.
what he wrote Tears in Heaven about.
And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the first time he ever performed the
Yeah, I
song.
believe it.
Yeah, I think so,
remember
too.
they made a video out of that live recording.
Yeah.
You know, they would play it over and over and over again. But one of the best things that came out of that is the reamp of Layla.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Did we have it? Did we have that?
Yeah, man. Do you want to? Let's start playing some tunes. Hang on one second. Let me get. Here is 30 seconds of Layla.
Your old man let you down. Like a fool, I fell in love with you. You turned my whole world upside down. Hey, love, got me on my knees, later. Begging, darling, please, later. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Make the best of the situation.
I know that song so much. There's a
Yeah.
point where somebody in the audience goes like, "Woo!" and I like I
know
can
that
hear it in my.
part.
I know it.
Yeah.
You know.
But what's amazing, he redid the song.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, the one is like, Layla. Like,
Yeah.
it's real
yeah.
heavy.
Yeah. It's not like a different arrangement. It's a
It's a
completely
completely
different
different
song.
arrangement. And so it's a different song altogether. It's a whole different vibe. And honestly, I prefer this version more.
Like he did this album and then he did From the Cradle.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yep.
And it was like right, boom, boom, like two great
It
albums.
completely reinvented
Yeah.
his
Yeah,
career.
absolutely.
Right. He was kind of like.
And he did a lot of acoustic songs after that. You know, like
Oh, yeah.
Changed the World.
What a
that
great
was a,
song
that was a
that
big
is.
song. Like, you know, and
Babyface.
My Father's Eyes.
Yeah.
I think
That's a good one, too.
it's in this.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
in
pretty
the,
sure it is, yeah.
the Unplugged album.
Yeah.
He it was funny. I read an article, the Chicago Tribune called this "Blues for Yuppies." Like this is kind of
Well,
the boomers and all that, like, are all, it's MTV and all.
My band would do a dinner hour, and we play the whole.
when you wore
Clapton
your
album.
Gigi Allen.
Yes, when I wore my Gigi Allen shirt, I would play the whole Eric Clapton Unplugged album, like my band would. It was great. People would fucking love it,
Did people get it? Did they know that you were playing the
I don't know. I don't think we played it like
in order.
In order, we like jumped around and threw some other stuff in there. I believe also maybe some jump jazz or jump swing. I don't know.
Rob, what do you think of this album?
When you mentioned Layla, like you were saying, Doug, earlier about, I think this version's better than the actual, original. I had heard the Unplugged version before I heard the original version.
I'm not surprised.
What?
I'm not surprised.
Jesus,
Hey, I like Coldplay. What do you expect?
He likes Coldplay.
But yeah, the Unplugged version is really good. Yeah.
You never heard Layla. You never heard Layla before this. Really?
No.
That's amazing.
You never saw Goodfellas, and then that scene that they start playing Layla, the piano
When
part
they're
at
all
the
getting
end.
shot,
And everybody's
everyone's dying.
dead.
I was in my 20s by the time I saw Goodfellas.
God.
And he just sold the natural.
Yeah,
Womp.
So-
which I didn't like.
I had
You didn't like the natural.
I did not like it.
You're an asshole.
get off my show. I had one other interesting nugget on this album, and I think we're probably going to have to move pretty quickly through this because there's so much goddamn territory we
I'm
need to
taking
cover.
my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
The song "Rollin' and Tumblin'"
Yes.
is
Yes.
on this
Great
album.
song.
It's a Cream song. And the story was, they said if you listen to it in the album, when it's like, it sounds like you're catching him, like, it's very abrupt the way it starts, because they said, like, everything ended, and Clapton just started, the cameras turned off, and Clapton just starts tooling around, and he starts playing it, and the musicians all know the song.
Sure.
So they chime in, and then the camera crew is all like, holy shit, he's playing a Cream song, and they real quick turn it on. So the album, it's not like, he doesn't ease into it. And then when he gets done, he turns around. He's like, "Did you guys get that?" And you're like, "Hell yeah, we
got
did!"
it.
But the
Not gonna
beginning,
use
the
it.
beginning it wasn't recorded.
Oh, wow.
So it's just kind of like this impromptu kind of thing, which is cool.
That's what's great about live recordings. Eric Clapton had an awesome band backing him up. Great horn section, great everything. But what I really remember is his percussion player. Remember, he was the bald guy with glasses, and he was so animated with his tambourine and shit, and he was just so into it.
I think he's playing with Eric Clapton.
No,
Yeah.
but
he's playing
I've seen him-
tambourine for Eric Clapton.
No, but I've seen him in other acts, and he's so.
I wonder who it is.
He was awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
But the level of musicianship on that stage, of course, they can just jump into that song. It's just like on the cuff. That's like Ryan said. That's the great thing about live music, and it's wonderful that they got it on tape.
It's so
yeah,
They
which is
caught
also
it.
why like
Spontaneous.
you never turn off the goddamn camera. Like we don't even turn off the recording when we're
No.
doing this. You know, like we take a commercial break and take a 20-minute break to go take a piss and have a drink and a cigarette and everything. We always, you keep it running because you never know what you're going to get.
No, I'm sure there was a lot of things that Unplugged captured accidentally.
Yeah,
Stuff
that just kind of organically happened.
And that's again, that's live music.
Yeah, man. It's a beauty of rock and roll.
Catching magic in a bottle, man.
I think it's one of the better MTV shows that were out.
I think
in our
it,
day.
I think it was
it's
the
the
best
best.
one.
The
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
Because you not to jump too forward, but the evolution of music happened during the Unplugged. Like
Totally.
you have like you said, Poison to Eric Clapton,
To Nirvana,
to
Alice
exactly,
in Chains,
Yeah,
to
like
STP.
to Korn. Like you said, Korn.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you said, you saw the evolution of rock and roll changing, and some hip hop getting in there too, which we'll talk about.
And like we did a whole show on how 1991 was the greatest year
Absolutely.
in the history of music, and this is going on at the time.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why music was so awesome.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
you had shows at this year Access, because here's your favorite bands jumping off the album and doing another version of it on MTV.
And like you say, nope, you can't hide behind anything.
No.
So I feel like within the circle of these musicians, well, now you have to do Unplugged. Let's see if you guys can do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot of bands were like, oh, we can't do that.
Yeah.
We're not good enough for that.
Yeah.
And there's a couple that we're going to talk about. Like the performances aren't perfect, which is
No.
what makes it so great.
It's great.
No, but that's what's great. Going to see a band in a coffee shop. That's what they were kind of going for, the vibe of the show.
And you think about the 90s, that's all it was, man, is just coffee shops and acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
You know, me and Ryan played a few coffee shops at one time or another.
You ever
know?
bring a drum set in a coffee shop?
Yeah, it's great.
you bang the mocha out of your coffee.
All right, man. So moving along chronologically is the next album that we decided we're going to talk about was 1993, and that was 10,000 Maniacs.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing,
Yeah, dude.
amazing.
Performance. Yeah.
I fucking love Natalie Merchant's voice.
Sure.
It is just, it's sexy. She has this like,
She has charisma.
She does this like hip swagger. Like her voice is just really, I really like musicians that have interesting voices. Like I like Tom Waits. And,
Yeah, she definitely has.
She's-
her own
and
thing.
it's just,
She's a natural performer.
Yeah.
It's in her blood.
It's like
And-
soulful.
Yeah.
it's very soulful. And this album, so this album went 3 times platinum, and it also came out. So between the time it was recorded and it was released, she quit the band. So it went huge because
Oh,
it was like her.
huge.
I mean, that was a big deal, man, when
Oh,
she quit
that
that
was-
band.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like
And that album's probably the biggest one of their career. Would
it
you
was.
think?
It
Yeah.
was, and it was like, you know, imagine if you're like dude who plays in 10,000 Maniacs. Like they're still making music.
Yeah, they still
they're
have something
they're
with her.
irrelevant now without
without
her.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's out there doing her own thing.
She's
though,
put
too.
out a ton of stuff,
Yeah.
and some of her stuff.
Her first album was awesome.
Tiger Lily was great.
Yeah,
I loved
it was
it.
great.
Yeah, I followed her for a while, and I just I haven't recently.
The Unplugged was very different for them because they weren't a huge band. They were underground. They were art band, maybe like corny REM. They were in that.
No,
kind
they're
of-
better than R.E.M.
Dude,
No, but they were in that same like that
Yeah,
same
the same
genre,
genre.
yeah, that
college
alternative.
rock.
Yeah,
But here they are. They take this Bruce Springsteen song and they make it their own.
yeah.
And
You
it's a
know?
great rendition.
I like that version more than as big as a Springsteen fan as
Yeah.
I am. I like this version of Because of Night more than Patti Smith,
Yeah.
more than Springsteen's version. I guess
Let's
we
hear
should
it.
probably play a little bit of it. Yeah,
Let's
dude.
hear it, man.
There is hunger, is the fire I breathe. Love is a banquet on which we feed. Come on now, try and understand the way I feel under your command. Take my hand as the sun descends. They cannot you now, cannot you now, cannot you now. Because the night belongs to love.
They were the perfect band to be on MTV Unplugged. They're so earthy and so like this sound, you know, like, the only thing I can compare it to is this college sound. Like, you know?
I love that standard issue. Like I could put them in the same bucket with like Toad the Wet Sprocket and
Sure.
Hootie and the Blowfish. And I love that 90s,
Yeah.
that 90s college alternative
It's like
rock and roll.
you watch the beginning of Singles, and it's just
Yes,
like that.
yes,
that
I
coffee
love it.
Again, that coffee shop thing. Like, you know, everybody has the kind of like
It
the
was such
round
a-
glasses, and
Yeah.
like the song "These Are Days" is on this album, and it was on their last the studio album before this, and it was like that's one of my favorite songs in the 90s.
you want to play a second of it?
No, we already
Okay.
played one song of
Yeah.
it, but it was like, you know, just and she's doing this quirky, and the video for "These Are Days"
remember
is
it.
like,
Yeah.
is really shitty.
That's a
in
great song,
hindsight.
though. It's a beautiful
But it was
song.
like, she's doing this weird dance on like
Yeah.
a cliff, and in the Unplugged, she was doing the same dance. It was awesome.
Yeah,
It was one of my favorite.
I didn't know that the band broke up right after that performance.
Yeah.
Dude, but at the same time, like, you know, the 10,000 Maniacs went off to do be the 10,000 Maniacs, and she went off to be her. You know, like, and you guys said, like, no, like, they kind of maybe fizzled out apart, but can you imagine if they got back together again? Like, do you think people would be interested?
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah,
Rob would go.
I would go to
The
that show.
warden would go.
I would absolutely go to that show. Why not?
Yeah, why
sure.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Would you be pissed that they didn't play Because the Night?
Yes. Yes.
I'm looking up.
I would be.
I'm looking up their discography right now. So 10,000 Maniacs, their last album, they came out with an album 97, 99, 2013, and 2015. So they're still
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
they came out with an EP in 2017. So they're still making music. I have no idea who's
I was gonna ask
singing
you that,
for them.
yeah.
They made an album like after
I remember she left and they made another album.
they made one album, and I just never, you know,
They were still being maniacs without
yeah.
it.
don't write us and say I don't believe you don't know.
I was just going to say that. How dare you?
How dare you not know?
You call you guys music fucking guys.
I had two other points on this album. One is guest singers are also a big deal.
Sure.
He's MTV Unplugged.
on the Unplugged.
David Byrne from the Talking
Yeah.
Heads was on this.
Okay.
You know, and I sat when we were listening to you guys were talking about 10,000 Maniacs and all these kind of other bands. And I was like, man, can you imagine if the Talking Heads did an Unplugged?
It would have been awesome.
Dude, my God.
David Byrne is great.
Those guys are never getting back together.
No,
ever.
no, they
Ever.
hate him.
Did they do a Talking Heads song on Unplugged
I don't think
together?
so.
It was just some other song.
And then so there was a lot of these two came out on video.
Yeah.
And the video had shit that didn't make it on the album because the CD, you could only fit so many songs on it because of time. And they covered Jolene by Dolly Parton.
Really?
And it was really cool.
Awesome.
I
It
gotta
was like-
listen to this. I gotta listen to
go
this.
look it up, man.
Yeah.
It was really
That's a
cool.
great
And it was
song.
just something that it missed the cut and just didn't make it.
Is there's an actual recording of it?
Yeah, you can find it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was on the video version of the album.
Okay.
Or the cassette, the VHS tape that got
I'm sure
released.
there was some kind of licensing thing.
Could be.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah. All right, man. So let's move on. 1994. This was a really big year, but the first one that came out, or the first one that I had on my list, was Page and Plant.
It was a big deal.
Dude, this was huge.
That was
remember.
the biggest one that they did. MTV Unplugged did. This was the biggest, highest rated show that they had.
it was like, you know, besides not having John Paul Jones there, this was like the recreation of Led Zeppelin.
And they called it like No Code. It was like
No Quarter.
I'm sorry, yeah, No Quarter. And they actually did a tour after they
Yeah.
got together and did a tour. Me and Ryan went to 2 of the shows. It
And this was
fantastic.
like, right, so it had been, it said it was only the second time they appeared together since 1980.
Yeah,
So
it was-
you're looking
yeah,
at
it was great.
15 years, and
Yeah.
it's Led fucking Zeppelin.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did like Gallows Pole, and that was like the big
Which is
single. off
awesome. The
Yeah.
version of Gallipool is great.
I remember at the show they did Kashmir.
Yeah.
With the Philadelphia Orchestra
yes,
came
and the
out.
version of Kashmir on the No Quarter album is great too.
They asked them when originally before they recorded them this show, they was like, we were requesting for you guys to do Stairway to Heaven. They were like, no way.
They refused to do it.
Yeah, I
I
don't
heard
blame
that, too.
them. I don't blame them.
They have way better songs
Absolutely.
than Stairway.
They do Immigrant Song?
They might have, dude. I can't remember top of my head, but you know, they were playing everything but Stairway, and everybody was pissed off about it.
Get the fuck out.
This album is not on Spotify.
Yeah, I was looking for it. It's not on there.
That's
All right.
crazy. That's
Well,
a huge album.
we are the prisoners of rock and roll. We do what we want. So I'll go on
I'm a
YouTube.
pirate.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. What do you want to hear?
Put on Gallows Pole.
Gallows Pole?
Unless you could think of something else.
No, Gallows Pole was great.
That was the song that was the single they released.
You know the way to that bar is in the gallows pole. Hangman, hold it a little while. I think I see my brother come riding many miles. Oh, yalla, yalla. Oh, come on, yeah. Oh, yeah. My brother, you get some silver. Little
So man, that was just really hard because
Yeah.
so that album's not on Spotify because of some licensing agreement.
Yeah.
Probably some blues dude
Yeah.
sued the shit out of them.
But
and
that's
they-
not even the recording from the Unplugged. That's
I
a,
just-
like
I
a
just
live
found
show.
some
yeah,
other, like,
yeah, because I
some-
remember the recording.
Okay.
Because it was on the radio all the time.
Well, the thing that I remember about the Unplugged was this was like the first time that you've seen those dudes together, and you know, in like over 15 years.
Yeah.
Maybe when they went to Live Aid and they blew it.
Yeah, they
I
sucked.
heard that was awful. It didn't even make the home video. But you know, my first taste of seeing those dudes, like I always seen them on the CD cover or hear just the songs. Here they are live.
Yeah.
94. So we're 18 years
Yeah.
old.
This was the biggest thing in rock and roll when this happened.
It was.
And
This
it was
the biggest thing in rock
Zeppelin.
and roll.
It was huge.
It was Zeppelin getting back together,
Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah.
Or
yeah. For the
those
most
two
part,
guys.
it's Zeppelin getting
Those
back.
two guys, yeah.
Sorry, John Paul
But it
Jones,
sucks
but that's
that
Zeppelin.
but I never understood why they never invited
dough.
John Paul Jones.
It's all
I
about
guess
the
so.
dough.
I guess so.
It's all about the money,
yeah,
honey.
That blows.
Well, they didn't
And-
get rich for being nice guys.
And again, we said on another show, and John Paul Jones on the albums, man, he plays a lot of the instruments that people think Jimmy Page plays. You know?
Do you? So I have a theory that they have not gotten back together because he can't sing anymore.
Totally.
That he can't hit those.
He can-
There's no way he can hit. And he does all
Yeah.
that. He does all that bluegrass shit with
Yeah. And he won a Grammy.
Alison Krauss.
Yeah.
Which is it's not bad, but I got to be in a mood
Yeah.
to listen to it.
I've heard that. I read that over
That
and
you
over
just
again.
can't
He
hit those
can't
notes
hit
anymore.
those notes anymore. Everybody wants it, but you know, you can't capture it.
He's
again.
old. He's in
I-
his 70s.
Yeah.
He's not
No.
Springsteen.
he knows it. He knows that he can't do it. So why even try?
Right.
Maybe that's why Page went out and got David Coverdale and tried to do like a
Page and Plant. I mean,
Coverdale and Page.
Coverdale and Page.
Yeah, maybe that's why he did that.
I said this in another episode, man. That's a great album. I know you don't like you. I like David Coverdale more than you do.
Yeah, but is it? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now I read out there that Miles Kennedy got together with with the guys from Zeppelin. And
Really?
It was just like rehearsals. And Miles Kennedy was like, yeah, it happened. He was like, oh,
Wow, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what they played. I really can't. It was on
Wow.
this was on that metal show. Names.
From Alter Bridge.
Yeah.
We talked about him a lot.
Yeah.
In
and
another
Slash,
episode too.
And Slash's
Yeah.
band.
What
Wow.
were they rehearsing for? Were they just getting? They just got together. Just one of those things.
Miles Kennedy said they just wanted to rock.
Right. Wow. I never heard that before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
I guess I got to give Miles Kennedy a little bit more credit than I
I
do.
think
I'm
he's
not a big
awesome,
fan.
man.
I'm not a
I
big
know
fan
you
of his
don't-
voice. You know.
I think he could sing any cover song.
Yeah, he's in a great cover band.
Yeah.
All right, you want to keep rolling?
Sure.
All right, man. So we're going to probably spend a little bit of time on this, and this is probably the one that the warden's going to want to get in on. This 1994 Nirvana.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. Oh nice.
Right. This is the biggest. This is the pinnacle of Unplugged, right?
Right.
This is the number one.
Rob, what do you remember about Nirvana Unplugged?
The very first song that comes on the album is about a girl. And, I was just like, this is totally different than any other thing they've done, like from Nevermind and In Utero and Bleach and all that stuff. And I was really digging it. But what I really like on that album is, their cover of Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World.
Yeah.
And he sings that second verse in the song, and like, you hear the guy in the background going like, woo! You know, like, you can hear it on the radio, you can hear it like on Apple Music or Spotify, whatever.
Yeah.
And you always hear that guy going, woo! You know? But it's such a good album. You go from Plateau, Jesus Don't Want Me for a Sunbeam, and even, Come As You Are, their cover on the Unplugged album was really good. But the one thing I remember definitely about the album is he killed himself right after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
5 months later.
Yeah.
5 months,
Yeah.
5 or 6 months later.
Yeah.
So when we say MTV Unplugged, is this what you guys think of?
Totally.
Yes,
Is it?
absolutely.
I think.
It's one of them.
I think
It's one
most
of them.
people think of that too.
I think it was the best one that was out.
It's the most memorable one. Is what people remember the most one because it was everywhere.
The
Still
thing
everywhere.
was, it showed them how talented Nirvana really was.
Yes,
They
so-
just weren't this punk rock band. As much as I wasn't a fan of them or anything like that, but I couldn't deny that they were this talented thing that they had together.
My favorite album that they made was Bleach, and I don't say that to be like, oh,
Sure,
I liked them
yeah,
before they got it.
yeah.
I like just the in your face. It's punk rock. It's really fuzzy. It just
Yeah.
it reminded me of like Husker Du, some of like that late '80s punk. But this is just like he's vulnerable. Like his voice cracks a lot. Like it's just really unguarded, and you kind of get this glimpse into like he's this troubled dude who had all these kind of issues, and you just see this really even physically, like looking at him, like he had that sweater and his body language. It was just a different way to
He
look
looked
at
like an
him.
old woman.
Yeah.
Well, I read when we're doing research for the show, he was going through withdrawal. He got off of heroin. So he couldn't really function. So they gave him a Valium to do that show just to get through because he couldn't
He
do
looked
it.
like it.
Yeah, he couldn't do it. But, you know, these guys did pull it off, but the rehearsals for his things were a disaster where they got to a point where
You can't do rehearsal for something
I know,
like that.
but Kurt didn't even want Dave on the thing because he didn't like the way the drumsticks sound.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he shows up for the day of the recording, and whoever the producer is gives him a gift for brushes, and everybody thinks that Dave's going to freak out.
Yes, he didn't like the
dude,
sticks on
There
the,
was the
yes.
hot rods.
Yeah,
He
so
was
he
using
gave him the brushes.
hot rods.
Yeah. So
What? I'm sorry. Wait. What's a hot rod?
A hot rod is a bunch of bamboo sticks, basically kept together by a piece of plastic, and that's what Dave Grohl uses through the whole.
Yeah, so instead of a drumstick.
instead
Yeah.
of using a drumstick or brushes per se that they
Okay.
use in jazz bands, these were made more like a drumstick, but they wouldn't give off like a drumstick. It would give off more of an acoustic sound kind of thing.
and they gave him
Okay.
to Dave, and Dave's like they thought he was going to freak out. He's like, "Awesome! I never played with these."
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and he just rolled with it.
Dave made them famous.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
and Dave
made them famous.
as good as it like as Kurt is like with the voice cracking and this and that, you know, Dave is the MVP of that. He's singing backup
He
on this
sounds
stuff.
great on that.
This is like before he recorded anything for the Foo Fighters or
Yeah.
even started writing songs.
Can we
you know?
hear a song off of it?
Yeah, man. Of course.
Let's hear Come As You Are. It sounds great, the guitar tone that Kurt has going on. I don't know what kind of effect he has, but it's fantastic.
So that's a good point. Before I play it, so this wasn't all acoustic. They did have amps.
Yeah.
They did have some effects on their guitars.
But they didn't want to show the amps on stage, so they made
They
them
put
look
it
like
in, like,
monitors.
yes.
They box monitors. So
All
they
right.
tried to disguise it.
all right, here you go.
was a friend. Yes, I know. Man.
But with the effects and everything like that, I don't think anybody really gave a shit.
No,
Like, you know what I mean?
they just sound
I'm
awesome.
sure,
I didn't
I'm
know,
sure,
like-
I'm sure some asshole was out there, and some pompous guy was like, "Oh well, they're not completely unplugged."
I never
you know?
even thought about it.
I didn't either
No,
until
neither did
I did the
because-
research and I
yeah.
saw it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Compared to their regular sound, that's pretty unplugged.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, their earlier stuff, man. It just said like with the stuff that I like, Bleach. That's a sledgehammer that just smashes you over the head.
The version of Where Did You Sleep Last Night is fucking haunting. I said it before on our Blue show. I think Kurt's the only one that could give that song justice.
Yeah, yeah, man. Even like so, I looked up a breakdown of like because they didn't play a lot of the hits, right?
No.
There's one song from Bleach.
Right.
There's 4 from Nevermind. There's 3 from In Utero, and 6 of the songs are covers.
But that's what's cool about it. It's more other Nirvana. It wasn't like, it was like, here's a bunch of other songs that we
greatest.
could
We're not going to play our greatest
And
hits.
they weren't at that
We
point in their
made-
career. They weren't having fun being Nirvana.
No, they
Like,
were
you know,
totally
He
did
was
something
done at
different.
that point.
Yeah, but he's just like, I don't want to play these songs anymore. Like he made a joke out of it. But then you get to see them like, okay, this is what we really appreciate in music.
They
you know?
really made their own songs, like the man who fell there. What was it?
The Man Who Sold
Man Sold the World.
Man Sold-
Yeah, the Bowie
they
song.
made it their own so much that at the end of it, Kurt goes, "That was a David Bowie song."
Right.
And
Yeah,
that-
you know,
they did the same thing with the Meat Puppet songs. Like that was a Meat Puppet song.
Yeah, and the
you
Meat
know?
Puppets actually got like they were on the stage for a couple
Yeah.
of the songs, and
Pat Schmier was there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Pat
it
Schmier.
was.
Yeah.
and MTV was not happy that the Meat Puppets were there. And the
Yeah.
Meat Puppets had that one-off hit with Backwater, which is they were a great band.
Yeah,
they were like
right.
overrated. They were underrated.
You know what's really great? I saw Nirvana get inducted in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Pat Schmier, of course, was inducted with Nirvana. And Pat Schmier played that same guitar that he played on the Unplugged. He played that guitar in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. And I was like blown away.
I remember how that stage was all set up with the dandelions or all around. Like what they caught on film was probably so unique. Like it was perfect time.
It just captured him, like just his that troubled,
All the flowers and everything
Yeah,
like that.
but there's always like a degree of just like anger in what he did. But he would,
They created a mood. You know what I mean? They create like a stage mood. And I felt that, we'll get to STP, but STP, they seemed like a standard, like to create more of an ambiance on stage for these performances.
Yeah.
I just think Scott Weiland wanted to be a rock star, and Kurt was like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
Can I add something real quick? To
Yeah, of course,
sure.
please.
There you go, brother.
The Man Who Sold the World, like the other part of that song I really liked is the very end with the woman playing the cello.
Definitely.
And it's like this is a grunge band I'm listening to, like in a dumbed down like little show, and they got this woman playing a cello. Like you would never see that from any grunge show.
Sure.
Back in the
That's a
early
great
90s.
point, dude.
Yeah.
Man.
I was watching, like when we did our first MTV show, and I was watching like MTV news things and everything like that. So a lot of the day Kurt Cobain died. So all they played that day was the whole MTV Unplugged on loop all day long.
It didn't come out. It came out very shortly after he killed himself.
No, like I just watched.
No,
it.
I mean the CD. They released it as a CD. They released it as an album.
But
like it was the first thing that came out after he died.
right. But they already showed it on television already. Like it was already aired on television.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean. They kept on showing it on loop all day long. And man, like
This,
they were they raised the bar,
and this was also like, they wound up getting the album. They got a Grammy for Best Alternative Music Performance, the only Grammy they ever won, and it was probably because of what happened to him.
You think so,
posthumously.
or you think it was like
It might have gotten it anyway, but
I
it,
honestly think he would have got it anyway.
I think it would have too, but it just locked in, much like
He became Jim Morrison overnight.
yeah.
Like
He
the tail of Nirvana.
He became
Kurt
this
Cobain.
huge iconic thing. Anything that Nirvana was up for, they won.
I mean, he was. You're right. He was the Jim Morrison of our generation. He was the guy. Like he was the rock star. I mean, Rob, you just said it. Like I remember people crying, like in school when he died. Yeah. But people did, man. Like he had
I thought it was
totally.
very, very upsetting.
For years to come, it was like poor Kurt and everything.
Right. I mean, we talked about that in our episode of 91, but this is one of they were a band that you could divide music and to everything that happened before it and everything that happened after it. Like it changed everything.
Like, before there was Nirvana,
Right.
there was this hairband shit.
Right.
Yeah,
They changed the game completely.
And then after all their success, they changed the game again with
With this
performance.
Yeah.
That's just like they're just so fucking talented.
We could have done a whole show
Yeah.
on just this one album
Yeah.
and how groundbreaking it was.
You know what's also creepy about that, Ryan? What you said, like when they announced it on MTV News and they played the whole album, the whole day or whatever, was hearing Courtney Love read a suicide note.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was bullshit.
Yeah,
She's an asshole.
Yeah, we're gonna get to her.
She's scumbag of the week.
I was gonna say, she's my shit.
Play shitbag of the week. Courtney Love.
You're the shitbag of the week.
So Hole's going to come up a little bit later, but Courtney Love, I think, is the shitbag of the week, and now's a great time. We have a new jingle for shitbag of the week. Shitbag of the week. Dun, dun, dun.
Courtney Love.
That's some high quality audio engineering you got right
You
here.
really
Those
worked
are-
some magic on that one, sir.
I did.
How
Yeah.
many takes did that take you?
It was like 4 hours of editing work. So my wife was thrilled, and I'm like, no, but it's got to be perfect. You guys want to keep rolling? You want to keep
Sure.
rolling? All
Yeah,
right.
man.
So the next one, 1995, Bob Dylan.
Wow, what an amazing
this was
time
great.
this was.
Yeah.
Dylan on MTV. I mean, coming out of like Dylan not doing anything like media wise to he's on MTV.
This might have been my first real exposure to Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Like, I know, Ryan, you always like Bob Dylan. Ryan always like, what don't you get? Why don't you just get this? Like, why don't you like Bob Dylan?
I get it. Like Bruce is making faces.
I fucking hate this album so
Really?
much. I hate this album.
Yeah, I loved it. It was like one of the first introductions to Bob Dylan live, and it made me think, it was like, wow, he doesn't do the songs the way it sounds on his album. Like, he changes everything up, a different way he says things. If you don't know his words, you're fucked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't like this album when it came out, and I
Okay,
have not
fair
listened
enough.
to it in 25 years.
Yeah.
And then when it came up on our notes, I sat down and I tried to listen to it.
I was going to ask you if your opinion changed.
I got through 3 songs, and I'm
Really?
like, I can't.
It's
I can't.
fantastic
His
piece of
voice,
work,
it's
though.
just, it's too much with his voice.
It's a fantastic piece of work.
When you
though.
say that, play something off of that.
All right, so you got like a Rolling Stone on here.
Go to 3 minutes in.
When the direction wrong, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone. You never turned around to see the frowns on the jugglers and the clowns when they all came down to do tricks for you.
It's fucking great, dude.
Hey, this is Kermit the Frog.
Dude, when he came back in with the verse, man, I just put my hands up. I'm like, what don't you like? Like,
His voice, man, is just.
I get it. But
Yeah.
that's the thing about, my dad's sitting over in a chair. He's like, Bob Dylan's not a singer. Johnny Mathis, no, that's a singer. Bob Dylan's more of how can you say?
storyteller, maybe?
No, yeah, of course.
He's a
of course.
poet with a guitar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I get where he fits in, man. I don't dismiss him.
But you think about it, he was doing acoustic work before anybody.
Right, and that
You
was
know?
right. That was MTV Unplugged. It was like,
Yeah.
dude, like when
You gotta have
he
Dylan on.
stopped being acoustic was a big. When
Yeah,
he plugged
that was
in, that
huge.
was a
people
big
are losing their
deal.
minds,
Yeah,
dude.
I never thought about that. Yeah, like here's MTV, be like, oh, here's maybe that's why he did it. He like to like go back to like. But now I'm going to shock everybody. I'm going to go back.
And this is after the Wilburys and all that, and like really major success, like touring with Tom Petty, and Tom Petty being his backup band.
Yeah, the Grateful Dead.
The Grateful
Right.
Dead.
It is-
and he
but
strips it
he's
down.
not on MTV.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's,
now
right,
he's
correct,
on MTV.
right.
but it's funny, like, like he's going back to his roots. He's like, I'm MTV Unplugged. Man, I started out doing that shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so he recorded this over 2 nights. He did like 23 songs. They had to cut it down to 1 album.
He played for 6 hours.
Right. He played 3
I think
songs.
it must
It
be
was
fucking awesome.
but also like another great point of MTV Unplugged was they reintroduced you to old art, like artists
Sure.
who got like
Yeah.
McCartney, Tony Bennett,
Neil Young.
Bob Dylan. Like it did like kind of revitalize, and this did revitalize his Bob Dylan's career.
It totally did.
Yeah,
like I said, he was on MTV. He was never on MTV.
No.
There was no reason for him to be on MTV.
Like I'm going to try to correct myself and just ask a question. Was this before the Wilburys or was this after the Wilburys?
I'm pretty sure it was after the Wilburys.
I think. Hang on, I can find out.
The Wilburys like the early 90s?
the Wilburys were.
It was like 87, maybe?
This is afterwards.
So what year is this?
I would say.
Oh,
This
you
is
were
like
born in
92.
Roy Orbison died in '88.
Okay.
So this is
Yeah.
So this is
So here he had like
6 years
he
later.
had like commercial success, and he's known because he's
He
the
had
Wilburys, and that was a
huge-
huge band.
I
Dude.
mean, yeah, I mean, he had huge commercial success. He was Bob Dylan.
sure,
He was no stranger of selling millions of albums.
he's a household name by
Yeah.
that point, and like
Yeah.
rightfully so.
Yeah.
I think when Dylan was on MTV Unplugged, the parents were like, "Oh, look, I can watch MTV." Like I can relate to my kids and would sit down and watch something from my era and to introduce them to something new.
I mean, from MTV, man, getting him to do this is brilliant. Because like you said, he was acoustic rock and roll.
But what you said, like, you get the parents coming in and start watching it, but then you see like, Crosby, Stills, Nash and did it. I mean, there's another band from that era, maybe that's what their marketing angle was. We want to get the parents in here and start watching
Could be.
MTV.
Could be.
I don't know. It's a guess.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but I'm not a huge Dylan fan. Like, I remember we were both Ryan, you and I were both at the same Dylan show.
Yeah, and I'm like,
And
that was fucking
You're
awesome.
like, that's fucking, you're texting me like, that's fucking great. I'm like, I left. I'm in the parking lot. I stayed for like 5 songs.
You didn't have the Blues Brothers moment? Like the light comes down, like I see the light. Man.
A friend of ours had given me tickets. Brendan had given me tickets.
Yeah.
And I was in a suite at the Wells Fargo Center with like
You left?
with
Free beer?
free food and free booze, and I still left.
That's crazy. You have to drag me out there.
Yeah.
No, it was
I'd
awesome show.
be leaving with beers in my pockets.
I didn't say I didn't do that. Just, I had them up my ass and walked,
Class, baby. Nothing but class.
all the way.
So, all right, you want to keep
Sure,
moving?
yeah.
The next album that came out in 1995, man, Doug, this is you, Kiss.
This was a huge deal. This came out actually. I don't know the date that they actually recorded, but it was released on Halloween.
Yeah.
And I was working at Pep Boys that time, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. Kiss is going to be on Unplugged. And honestly, my mind was made up before I even seen it that I was going to love this, and they sound amazing.
So you knew it was coming on,
Yeah.
And because I have a couple. There's another band we're going to talk about later that
Yeah.
I had that experience. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they're going to be on MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
I need to be home
And
to watch this.
I think I was like more curious, and like going back to what the statement I made earlier, like you really know how to play. They rehearsed to pull this off. They never did anything like this before.
What made it such a huge iconic show? It was the first time Ace Frehley and Peter Criss
Right, the four
got
of
back
them
together with the band.
And as much as I love this, I've said this since the day I saw the show. Peter Criss is the MVP of this show.
Yeah, he really was. Let's play Got Nothing to Lose on there.
And this is Peter Criss singing. And they flip through, so it's Peter Criss singing, then Eric Singer singing, who was a drummer at the time, who's now the drummer, the Catman drummer in Kiss now. And it's great. It sounds great.
All right, here we go.
All right, so I have a question. Was Kiss wearing their makeup for the show?
No, they weren't. But the stage set was totally Kiss. They had the big Kiss light up sign in the background. Mm-hmm. They had mannequins on top of that thing with the costumes on. The stage was a rock and roll all over,
Which is an album
cover. And it was like no explosions, no this, no that, but it was just like stripped down.
Rob,
And, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying, Rob, this led up to them putting the makeup back on. This was like, here we are, we're Kiss, we're back together. And then like Gene Simmons was like, cha-ching.
Yeah, right.
Let's put the
They
makeup
cashed
back
in.
on.
He cashed in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way this came across is that they were at a Kiss convention and they were in California. So Peter Criss calls Gene Simmons. He's like, would you mind if I brought my kid here to see this? My kid doesn't know anything about me doing any of this. And I just would like him to see what I used to do. So they came in, hey, why don't you do Beth? So he got up on stage because they usually have an acoustic thing. So he got up on stage to do Beth, and they're like, one thing led to another, and then they got Ace, and then they got on stage. Like, we're not going to play it, but Ace Frehley does a Keith Richards song for here on this performance called 2000 Man, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Any Stones fan would love it. And
Yeah.
I played it for Stones fans, and like, this is fucking great.
I'm not a big Kiss fan, and we talked about that in several other episodes.
Sure.
I really like this album. I was digging it, man.
I still listen to it all the time.
I think they sound tight. Like the rhythms and everything.
They're a
the
good
couple,
band.
they're just. I enjoyed it.
Dude, one of their major disaster albums was called Music from the Elder. It was like a concept album. Nobody got it. They're really proud of it. But they do Gene Simmons sings a song in here called The World Without Heroes. And it's awesome. Like the rendition, it's amazing. So if you're bored one day, listen to it. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised.
It's so bad he cries at the end of it.
Okay.
That's in the video. That
has a
album's
tear
so
coming
bad that,
down.
yeah.
But this is another band that was like they were on the ropes, and
Yeah,
they did
they
this
were.
MTV Unplugged, and it brought it like Clapton came back.
Yeah.
You know, like Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
I
had a
thought the
huge
Rod
comeback.
Stewart was awesome.
That was a big deal. But
That was
Kiss,
like-
but Kiss
Yeah, we
totally
didn't-
cashed in on this. They
Yeah, we-
totally cashed in on this.
Yeah, and they shit,
Yeah.
man. You get a second chance. Take advantage of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Rod Stewart. I don't think we have him on our list to talk about.
The
but-
best thing about Rod Stewart is when he brought Ronnie Wood back
Yeah,
up
that
on
was great.
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
For the faces.
we'll talk later, but Ronnie Wood was one of the greatest Rolling Stones ever.
Absolutely.
And we know that.
Are we going to bring up Rod Stewart in this?
We didn't. You want to talk about it for
Well,
a second?
yeah,
I don't have
but-
it on my notes.
Because
but
the one big song he had on there is like, "Did I ever tell you that I love you?" And that was a huge monster hit.
Yeah.
Every time you put on contemporary radio or you were in some store, you would hear that song.
But what he did was he did the Faces songs.
Sure.
He did Maggie May. I put that on our playlist.
yeah, you want to play 30 seconds of it?
Yeah, it takes a second to get in there.
Yeah. All right.
But that don't worry me none. My eyes show everything. I laughed at all of your jokes. My love, you didn't need to coax. Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried anymore. You led me away from home.
So we're going off the script here, and we didn't decide to talk about it. What do you guys? Do you guys like Rod Stewart? Do you
Yes.
think he's like a great like classic rock? You put him
No.
in a
He put a lot of bullshit music out.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. He put some bullshit music out, but you cannot deny that he has this fucking great voice.
He has a good voice on this. I put him up there with Billy Idol. I don't think Billy Idol's a musician whatsoever. So I've always put Rod Stewart in that category. He just sings, man. Like, is his voice great? It sounds great on this. But through his whole career, I'm not a fan at all.
I put him in the same bucket as Barry Manilow, like just kind of like
Yeah.
adult contemporary kind of.
Because he wrote that fucking song. Like, do you think I'm sexy? That's like kryptonite to me,
he
man.
did that like American Songbook kind of. He was doing like Cole Porter kind
Yeah.
of stuff like later in his career.
Like even that song, I'm not a huge fan of that song, but it sounds great.
Fuck his songs, but he's got a great fucking voice.
he
He
does have
could
a
sing
good voice.
anything. He could sing anything. He chose, or whoever chooses his songs for him, did fucking drop the ball. on
That's
that.
true.
My mom loves him. My mom said she listened to the show. If she still does, she.
But he revamped his career and he became Tony Bennett. He is this era of Tony Bennett. He is Tony Bennett.
That's probably better than me calling him Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but he's Tony Bennett.
I got my father to his records that the American Songbook.
Yeah.
He loves them.
I don't even know what the hell's in the American Songbook, but
Yeah.
you hear it all the time. Like, what the hell's the American Songbook? Like, I Born in the USA is the American Songbook.
For us,
you know,
it is.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never listened to it. Like I'm kind of intrigued at what's on. You just said Gershwin. Like how the hell's he? Like
I don't know.
It's more like show tunes.
We'll do an episode
boy.
on. We're going to reinvent the American Songbook.
I'm gonna get hammered on Sunday, and that's what I'm gonna put on.
Yeah,
and
like
see what this is all about.
Fortunate Son is like the American Songbook.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got two more artists left that we're going to talk about. 1996. This is my absolute favorite MTV Unplugged, and it's Alice in Chains.
Agreed. I said it a million times.
Yeah,
I do not like Alice in Chains. I love this album.
Yeah.
Ryan and I were working at Blockbuster Music at the time, and I played this every
Huge.
single day.
Yeah.
It was huge. I remember we have an end cap for it, and it was like a cutout. Of
The
like
little
Lane
cutouts of
Staley
the
and
guys. Yes.
and
I
shit.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never liked them. I was one of the guys booing them off the stage at the Van Halen show I saw, but they really shut me up by singing
Sure.
3-part harmony together on that album.
I remember getting in arguments with a good friend of ours who passed away a few years ago. Our buddy Joe Bruzzo, we called him Shiloh, and I would get in arguments with him. I'm like, "This is the best they ever sound." And he's like, "What are you crazy? They sound horrible." Like, and I was like, I always remember like blown away. Like, well, why do you think it's horrible? Well, he was very sick at this point.
The fact that
he didn't leave his house very much. He just left his house to go buy video games at like Kitty City or Toys R Us or wherever. And he lived in his house in seclusion until he did this show. And he comes in with the gloves on, all his track marks on his glasses, and it's very eerie to even watch him walk out.
He sounds fucking awesome.
He sounds amazing.
So they hadn't performed live in 2.5 years, and they did this, and they rushed the rehearsal because he was all jacked up.
Yeah,
and you can hear it, man. Like they are not perfect,
but
that's imperfection
fine.
Is what I know. Like one thing I love about them is a great part about their music is how dark it is.
Yeah.
And the darkness comes from his addiction and it ultimately destroyed him.
I think that's why I'm not really so much down with them. Like they are a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, their music is a bummer.
You had Wood on the
which
playlist.
Is more uplifting song.
Yeah. So I want to play Sludge Factory.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because Sludge Factory is about like him and a woman dealing with their addiction. Like she shoots up and she starts drooling and she wants to die. It's a fucking really dark song, man. Yeah. But even on this, like the bass, like you can hear how chunky the bass is. You can hear him hitting the bottom string on the bass and he's doing the and his voice crack. It's like, let me just play it.
You insult me. This time things go well, your eyes dilate, you shaking. I'm high, look in my eyes deep and watch the clouds change with time. 20 hours won't bring my picture, milk cards inside.
But it's haunting.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, though. It's so beautiful.
And how dark it is.
And it paints a picture of like where he, like you said, where he is in his state of mind. And like you're talking about the imperfections and this and that. That's what makes it great to me.
I think
it's real.
I think Alice in Chains' secret weapon is Jerry Cantrell.
Absolutely.
Jerry Cantrell is that whole band.
That band wouldn't exist without him.
No.
His solo stuff is great.
Sure.
Yeah. And the fact that they have come back. You know, like I've said, we always kick around ideas, and I've always wanted to do a show on bands that have had two singers.
Yeah.
Because they're one, but they took like a 15-year break.
Sure.
And they came back, and they're still like, it's a totally different vibe with the other Robert Duvall.
They're still relevant,
it's a different vibe, but it still has that heavy, sludgy kind of sound. I mean, music has evolved and changed, but Jerry Cantrell, man, is still going.
They have with the new era of Alice in Chains. I don't know what song was, but they got heavy radio play on MMR. They had success with them.
They did a track with Elton John.
Really?
On their album that they Black on Blue, the album that, or whatever the hell it was called. The first album they came back with the new singer.
Yeah.
Was just,
I liked it. I remember.
I remember who'd you see them open up for? Velvet Revolver?
Yes. And I saw them a couple years ago open up for Korn. And they were boring as shit.
Yeah, you said
I saw them a couple times, like by themselves.
Yeah, they're great and all. I just think their music is very mellow tone and very boring.
But it works for this, though.
Oh, it's great for Unplugged.
It works for this.
You know, I think one of the funniest things about the Unplugged was, I don't know, Mike Iazzi,
yes,
the bass player, he says, friends don't let friends cut their hair.
On his guitar.
Metallica's in the front row.
Metallica was sitting in the front row and they just cut their hair.
They're changing their image and all that. Yeah.
It was written on his guitar.
That was, I don't know. That's horrible. Metallica.
And at some point during the show, they say, like, we're going to play Metallica, and they break into the bass riff from Enter Sandman because they're all sitting in the audience.
They're like, you posers.
Yeah.
And they're all like friends. Like Jerry Cantrell played on like Garage Inc.
Yeah.
Like, Tuesday's Gone.
Tuesday's Gone.
Yeah. And he sings some of it in there also.
And they said Jerry Cantrell had real bad food poisoning too. Like he was, as we were rehearsing, he said he ate like a hot dog that day, and he got sick.
Yeah,
too.
I wouldn't eat anything that day.
No,
I wouldn't eat anything that day.
They had a great set, like the background,
candles,
the candles and the tapestry, and
but that's going back to that Nirvana thing. Like this is when they're creating a mood, creating an ambiance.
I thought these Seattle bands were the best.
Absolutely,
Unplugged.
And you know what's really great is that, you know, when these albums came out, like the Nirvana one, the Alice in Chains one, we'll talk about Pearl Jam later. This is when, for me and Ryan also, this is when we're really trying to become musicians. We're developing our skills, like developing of who our identity is. And you're watching them play, even though imperfections. Like I remember being in a band called Golden Dawn, and this was like album, like we worshiped this album. And it was just like, so interesting to listen to because in the long run, it developed me as a musician.
I'll let you get away with saying my name in there, but I'm not down with
No. I mean, just with the with the Unplugged thing.
the series of Unplugged.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Not the Alice in Chains.
No. I'm not saying like Alice.
Yeah,
I was just saying I just broke off to that, but just meaning like the whole Unplugged thing. And
You
like,
had
all
to be
these
a real
bands.
musician to be
Yeah.
Unplugged.
Yeah.
You know?
And you're watching these guys to see what they're doing because they're like Ryan said earlier. There's nothing to hide behind.
And I think part of the brilliance of Alice in Chains was like they would hit you like they'd punch you in the face, man, with like wood.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
That album Dirt. I loved it. But then they came out with like Jar of Flies.
That's a great
you know,
album.
And it's like, it's all this acoustic stuff and there's strings on it. And it was like, man, they were not afraid to push the envelope and try different things. And
But I think all their fans like that darkness. Like,
yeah,
they-
that's one of the things I love
their,
about
that's
it.
their thing.
You know, like when Alice in Chains was doing all their thing, I never quite understood the darkness of it. I say on our past shows, you know, in 1994, 1995, I was listening to Fish by then, and they were just this happy thing going happy. But then when this Unplugged came out, it was like, holy shit, these guys are really, really talented.
Yeah.
Like Lane was, of course, very haunted at this. And like we were talking during the song, like, oh, when did he pass away? Like a few years after this. I really, really hope that he got to enjoy this at least. Like not so hard on himself and lived.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think he did.
He joined the money into his arm.
Yeah, but took the compliments that was deserving to him.
He didn't care.
Yeah, that sucks though. I just wish that he got to enjoy it for at least a second.
He died very sad, lonely.
Yeah, he's a very lonely.
They didn't find him for days after he died.
The only reason they knew he was dead because his bank account wasn't being touched.
Yeah. His mom tried calling him a couple times, and there's a there's a really sad the last thing that they did. It's a cover of "We Don't Need No Education."
Oh, it wasn't Alice in Chains. That was like a super group.
It's him. Yeah, but it's like
was
Tom
it-
Morello.
Yeah, it was in that movie at the faculty. Yeah, I just watched that.
Let me play this. Just listen to this. Called The Class of '99. There's Lane Stanley, Tom Morello, Steve Perkins, a couple other guys. Listen to his voice. He's so buried in the mix, but listen to his voice real closely because he slurs all the S's. He goes like, "We don't need no education," because he said he showed up and all of his teeth had fallen out because he was so high on drugs. Just listen to this.
Wow.
He was so messed up on heroin that he couldn't
I never noticed that.
I had this dipshit kid named Justin that comes in the bar, and he knows nothing about rock and roll. And he was trying to tell me that was a better version of that song than the Pink Floyd version.
There's
I'll ask you later which Justin
The
was.
Rumpelmintz kid.
Oh,
the kid that drinks
he don't listen to this
Rumpelmintz.
show anyway. Really?
Yeah.
I'm impressed that he knows this version.
Yeah.
It's a really sad.
It's obscure. Yeah.
It's a kind of an obscure song, but when you hear it, it's like, and you realize that that's the last thing he did, and like, it's really sad.
It's
like,
very
he just,
sad.
He just died under really tragic circumstances.
He did it to himself. Well, you know, that's why he was wearing the black gloves during
Yeah,
the, on the
right,
Unplugged.
because
So you didn't
that
see
was
any of
done
them.
and he was doing
Yeah.
his hands.
Yeah, you didn't see any of them.
Yeah,
Wow.
really
He
sad.
had the sunglasses on, but it's iconic in my mind. That whole persona, his whole look for that, it's iconic.
Yep.
Is he in the 27 Club? No.
No, he was older.
He was older. He was in his 30s.
All right, so rolling on through the last artist I wanted to talk about in this section, and I guess it was an album, was Alicia Keys.
Okay.
And I only wanted to bring it up, so we just talked about Alice in Chains, 1996. Alicia Keys is now 2005. Her album, the Unplugged album, went #1. It was the first MTV Unplugged album to go #1 since Nirvana. And I'm not a really big Alicia Keys
She's
fan.
talented. I
She's
like her.
awesome
Yeah,
on this.
she's very talented.
And
She
I
can play.
I guess
I always
should-
see her in infomercials for her skincare.
Yeah. Hey,
Rob,
side
do you-
business.
Have you seen her in concert, Rob?
No, I have not, for the record.
No. Okay. She didn't open up for Coldplay.
Not that I'm aware of.
So, and then, so the only other interesting note I had, so this album was nominated for 4 Grammys, and reading about it a little bit, because I wanted to have something insightful, was the plan was that Springsteen was going to come out and play New York City Serenade with her. She was going to play the piano.
that would've been awesome.
And he had agreed to it, but then the schedules didn't work out, so she couldn't do it. I was like, how fucking
Really?
awesome though that
Yeah.
been that he would have come out, and I don't even know her music that well. I could just pick something on here and just play
What has the? Oh, like, it's still out.
Wild Horses with Adam Levine.
I've heard that before. No, thank you. Is that the dude from fucking that band?
Maroon 5.
Yeah, we could trash.
Moron 5. Moron
Is that the
5.
Stone? Is that the Stone song?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it?
Let's hear it. And
Yeah,
we'll
let's hear
trash
it. Yeah.
Graceless lady.
We sentence you to death.
You got to keep that in there.
Okay.
Honorary.
We don't need to.
We didn't even get the
Okay.
guy from Maroon 5.
Okay, so I like Alicia Keys. I don't like Adam Levine.
I hate him.
Dude,
Moron
I can't. That
5.
was awesome.
Moron 5.
He's a
I-
Fish fan too. Fuck
I
him.
don't even know a song on here that I could play that would be.
But why did it stick out so much? You know what I mean? Like, that's the question.
I think people like her, dude. That's why.
More than Mary J, you think?
She's a lot more than Mary J's just a singer.
She can
Mary
play.
J's
She
just a
plays
singer.
piano.
great. No, she's
she's
great.
got a good voice.
No,
and
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what year? I'm sorry. What year did this come out? 2000.
2005.
So like her first hits were like "You Don't Know My Name," and the other one was "I Keep on Falling In and Out of Love with You."
Here's You Don't Know My Name.
Good
Here's
for you, Rob. Step up the bat.
Say Beyonce.
which is like, I mean, this isn't unplugged. This is, that's an electric
But
bass.
but the show changed so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't a regular show
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
But it was, I mean, this was just a huge hit. And I just thought it was interesting that, there was something like MTV Unplugged was over, the MTV era was over.
Yeah.
But then here comes Over the Top and it had this enormous song.
But it shows you like they were like looked around and like who's talented.
Like, who's talented enough
And
to
they,
do this show?
who's exactly. And it was
Right.
just like,
yeah. So that's it, man. That's the ones that came out as albums. I know we skipped Tony Bennett, but that's, like,
In the Mariah Carey one, that was a big one.
yeah, that's a good one off. Like
Pearl Jam was a big one.
Yeah, Pearl Jam's. I had Pearl Jam in the later,
Okay.
Yeah,
in the
that-
later
yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it came out in 2020, but it was
No,
like,
no. It was recorded back then, man.
Yeah, we probably should.
It wasn't
put it up
released
here, but
until 2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, the Mariah Carey one was a big. The one
That was a big
one
deal.
Jackson 5 song.
That
and-
was a
Yeah.
that was
She
a
was-
huge hit.
Oh, I'll be there.
yeah,
that
she
was
was
a
one of the
huge
first
hit.
ones to kind of like cross over like R&B. But
Yeah.
we've got some. We got some stuff on some people that cross over
Absolutely.
from other artists. So,
All right.
take a commercial break and
Yeah.
we'll come back.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Stick around.
Prisoners of Rock and Roll is sponsored by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia. There's something for everyone on the beer list and the jukebox at McCusker's. It's minutes from the sports stadiums in Philly, making it a great place to stop by for a few drinks before or after a concert or a game. Come see for yourself why everyone from Philadelphia Magazine to Playboy has called it one of the best dive bars in the city. Visit them at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia or on Facebook. That's McCusker's Tavern. All right, we're back from the commercial break. Thanks so much for sticking with us. So I think before we dive into the other one-off kind of stuff, I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about performances that crossed genres. One of the cool things about MTV Unplugged was that they weren't afraid of taking artists who you would seemingly have no right to be on that stage and making them do MTV Unplugged.
It's amazing what they created.
Yeah.
Like what they thought of, like what they brainstormed.
And
It's amazing who jumped on board, like some of the acts. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get into some like hip hop acts, maybe. I think you might be leaning toward.
You're right. Let's start there, man. So they did a show called Yo Unplugged Rap.
I remember that.
And they took artists. It was Tribe Called Quest, LL Cool J, MC Light, and they let them do MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
And it was like, nobody did that.
I read something about when LL Cool J recorded his episode. He never played with a band before. And he rehearsed a few times, and they said by the second rehearsal, he was directing the band of what he wanted to sound like. So he really took it like a duck to water, as they say. You know,
just think about it, like how different that is, man. Like MTV was all about putting people on boxes, right? Because you had 120 minutes, and you had Yo MTV Raps, and here they're crossing the boundaries.
I don't think they could have done it with many rap groups. I mean, you just, like MC Light was awesome. I thought she was a great rapper.
What year was this?
Tribe, obviously, but LL, he did it with that Mama Said Knocked You Out.
Yeah, that was a big success for him.
Yeah.
This was 1991, man. So there's there's
this is brand new.
The concept of the crossover is not like, right. The Judgment Night soundtrack's not out yet. All that shit that crossed over. It's like, you had Run DMC and Aerosmith. Like, that's it, man. Like, nobody was doing this.
But I think it branches out more than that. I think that these artists really wanted to express themselves in a different way than what they usually did in the studio.
Sure.
Like, we're capable of so much more.
And you had cultural barriers that you're crossing, right? You got the like us, the alternative guys that, I listened to a little bit of hip hop when I was in high school, but it was like, when I saw this stuff, I was like, all right, man, I dig it. It's different.
They had something to prove that we can hang. We're artists. We're musicians. We're not just rappers or whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Instead of having, turntables and everything like that, they brought groups in, like the Roots played on Jay-Z's Unplugged.
Yeah.
Like that was an unbelievable
thing. And he's another one. We can talk about him too. Why don't we play a little bit of like, and this was never released as an album. Like the
LL Cool J.
Yeah. And it was like, so, how about I'll play the acoustic version of Mama Said Knock You Out. But at some point, like, he takes his shirt off and he's wearing his
he got
big
into it.
stupid hat.
But that was his thing.
And his underpits are like,
his deodorant. He said they still break his stones about it. He's like, at least I didn't stink.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, here's 30 seconds of Mama Said Knock You Out.
I've been here for years, I'm rocking my pants, what is something to fear? Making the chance, breathe down like a monsoon. Listen to the bass go boom, exploding. Overpowering, over the competition, I'm towering, that get shot. When I drop these lyrics that'll make you call the cops. Don't you dare, you better move. Don't ever compare. Beat to the rest that'll all get sliced and diced. Competition's paying the price. I'm gonna knock you out. Mama said knock you out.
Yeah, dude, that's a great version of that song.
one of my favorite parts that I always remembered when I was a kid. They break into Hard to Handle.
From the Black Crows
Well,
and
the Black Crows cover.
Otis Redding.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he breaks into it right towards the middle of it. He's like, all right, break down.
All right, hang on. We got to play some of that. I know we try to only play 30 seconds or something, but we're breaking it up, so we're not going to get sued. Hang on.
It's a different song.
Mama said knock you out, break down. Clap your hands, clap your hands, clap your hands. Keep it going now. We're getting funky, you know what I'm saying? Word up, we gonna pump this up. Keep it going now, one more time. Word, it's too much of a groove, check it out, clap your hands. As we go into it like this here. Shadow boxing when I heard you on the radio.
That's really fucking
Yeah.
cool.
What made you remember that?
I don't know.
remember
I
that.
just remember awesome, cool things that happen musically.
And it's just like, it's great. Like, it's not off the cuff, it's rehearsed. But like,
Yeah.
from them bringing that in there, like,
Yeah.
it's great.
I think that's one of the things that he orchestrated the band to do. It's like, oh, you'll be hot if we broke in the
Hard to Handle by Otis Redding. Yeah.
I need to do some research before we do the next episode and circle back. Like, who are those musicians playing? Because
Yeah.
I'm like, they got their shirts off. It's a bunch of white guys with long hair, and they're
Probably studio musicians.
yeah,
they're
they
probably,
might be.
they're probably studio musicians.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a vibe too. It's like like it. The one guy looks like Anthony Kiedis from the Chili Peppers.
was the
It had the
time.
Chili Peppers kind of vibe to it.
But then,
totally
like, we were
did.
talking about that during when it was playing, but that's what was going on at that time.
Sure.
Like, that was like popular rock, and this is not a rock thing, but it's musical instruments in it. So
It's before Judgment Night. It's before new metal. It was before Limp Bizkit. It was before anything.
Right.
You know, it was awesome.
Now, do we change our mind about LL being the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
I was
after this
just thinking
performance?
that too.
I don't know what you guys are talking about, but me, I said yes. I said yes, and you guys said no.
Well,
I
we
didn't put him on I didn't put him
What
on
do
my
you think,
list.
Mr. Owens?
For the record, yes, he should be in the Rock
yes.
and Roll.
He's so awesome. They gave him his own award.
Yeah, but at the same time, I remember doing that episode, and you just ripped through all the songs. He does this song, that song. That I'm like,
'Cause
okay, maybe you are onto something
He
here.
is the shit.
But the band,
Even the warden says it.
but you know who got like Tribe Called Quest
Yeah.
is on this too. They are fucking awesome.
They're just a great band.
They're still an awesome band.
Yeah.
So this episode
Q-tips.
was one. It was called Yo MTV Unplugged. So it was one episode. So
Yeah.
there was a bunch of acts.
It was MC Light, who is awesome. She's always been awesome. And Tribe Called Quest. And,
Right.
And,
So
LL.
LL didn't get his own show.
No. So Tribe
because
comes out,
he was a huge star at this point.
Right.
That was a humongous
That was a
tune.
huge song.
Tribe comes out and does like "Can You Kick It?"
I
and
remember
with the
that.
whole audience going
Can
crazy.
You Kick It? Yeah.
And I was like, and they're still great because I was trying to find this on YouTube to look for it. I found like the first thing came up was like Tribe on SNL like very recently, and I was like,
Oh, I
dude,
did
they're-
see it.
They're still great.
Yeah, I watched Tribe on SNL.
Yeah, their
I
last,
watched-
their
yeah, I
last-
remember that.
that last
Yeah.
album that they
Yeah.
put out right after the
guy
the one guy
passed
died.
away.
I was like, it's a fucking great album. I still
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah.
As I'm sitting here thinking, I kind of wish that the Beastie Boys did an Unplugged. I wonder if they could have pulled it off.
That would have been
Definitely.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably didn't want to do it. I'm sure they approached everybody.
Yeah.
And the money wasn't right. Or
But they were
something
huge
wasn't
at
right.
that point. I guess Check Your Head was kind of out at that time. They were huge. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
I wish it would have happened. It
there
would
was
have
a
been
lot
something
of
to talk about.
a lot of other bands could have totally took advantage of the Unplugged.
And there was a couple other hip hop artists who did, like Lil Wayne did MTV Unplugged.
Really?
And it wasn't, Lil
So-
Wayne's okay. I listened to a little bit of it. It wasn't,
He's more interesting than his music.
yeah, it wasn't unplugged.
Yeah.
It was like under the auspices of Unplugged. And then, but the other one that was really interesting, dude, was Jay-Z.
Yes.
Sure.
So Jay-Z performed with the Roots.
Yes.
And I like, as I've gotten older, my respect for Jay-Z as an artist has
Absolutely.
been like, dude, he's
Greatest of all
he's
time.
insanely rich.
Yeah.
But he's also like, he had no problem. Like, he does this show and he gets out and he's like, welcome to coming to the Jay-Z Poetry Hour or
Yeah.
something like that. And then he just breaks right into like,
He's insanely
Hova.
talented. He's insanely talented, man. Everything he does is like not perfect, but like it's very good.
I don't know too much about hip hop. I'm not going to pretend that I know about hip hop. I can like name some things and be white bread. But Jay-Z is probably one of the best there ever was.
here's
You know.
here's a little bit of the Izzo.
I got the most incredible Roots band with me tonight, y'all. It's a beautiful thing. Welcome, everybody, to the 8th wonder of the world. The flow of the century. Oh, it's timeless. Ho! We want to thank everybody for coming out. You could have been anywhere in the world. You're here with me. I appreciate that. Let's rock. A to the Izzo, B to the Izzy. For Shizuma, that's who you...
So he made acoustic version of that song.
Yeah, that
And
is
it's
a
just
total
really
different
really
vibe,
cool.
different everything. That's that
Yeah,
version of that.
he
song.
didn't just say like I'm just going to do a song with a band. He
Yeah.
just like the girl singing in the background and
Yeah.
the church organ.
And
really cool.
And automatically he gives the Roots props. Like, this is my band, the Roots.
Yeah.
Who's playing with me tonight? Not my band, but this is the
Yeah.
Roots, And
I
who
love
else
him.
could you get? Who's bigger than the Roots? Like, in that genre of music?
I love in just every recording he does of that song. He's like, you could have been anywhere tonight, but you that's
Here with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I
It's like a Vegas act.
really enjoyed listening to that. And I remember when that came out and it was like Jay-Z's doing MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
But he really tried to do an Unplugged.
He did a great job.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
awesome.
Like
He's great.
he had the Roots,
I
which
think
was a great.
I have to go back and revisit this because I remember we were listening. I'm like, man, I think I bought this when it came out because it was such a big thing. I got to go back and revisit it because it sounds great.
Yeah. Really
Just with all
talented.
the flute in it and
Yeah. So I just want to tear through a couple other odd or some genres that crossed over, and we can dive into the other thing. We've been talking for an hour and 50 minutes, but so then when hip hop became big, they had an R&B unplugged, and that was Boyz II Men, and it was Shanice and Joe Public, and there's been some other artists that did other some crossover R&B artists like Maxwell. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later.
He's awesome.
A little,
Maxwell.
yeah. I have a clip of him.
Yeah.
Doing a song later, which is great. Erykah Badu, she's really talented.
She's
too.
great. Yeah.
Babyface, again,
Yeah,
really
he's very
talented. And then Lauryn Hill, we'll talk about her a little bit
she's
later
great.
too. Her unplugged.
Yeah, it
album
was amazing.
Is weird. And then there was some Latin artists. There's a handful of Latin artists I'd never even heard of. The two big ones we talked about, Shakira and Ricky Martin, they both went platinum. And what I thought was weird, it was like, MTV never had a country artist do an unplugged album until 2021.
Willie didn't do one?
No.
Wow.
And you would think they would, I know it's a different music genre. You think they would have thrown somebody.
You think they would have got Johnny Cash
I was
after
thinking the
Bob
same thing,
Dylan?
yeah.
There was a VH1 Storytellers
I remember
with
that.
Johnny
That's
Cash
right, yeah.
and Willie Nelson,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
But they had Dierks Bentley, which I know and you guys probably don't, but it was on season 19 was the first time they finally had that. And then there's also some odd shit that MTV Unplugged did. So there's two examples of that. The first one is spoken word.
They jumped a shark, dude.
So they had 3 episodes where they had poets come and read all of their stuff. And,
Yeah, but who was the poets?
and
I can imagine who
so
it is.
I knew most of the poets, but I have an English degree, and that was my bag back then. The one person that you would have heard of was Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins read a poem called Ode to MTV Unplugged. And I sent this to a couple of my buddies from college who were also huge Henry Rollins fans. They're like, I don't remember this at all. I guess we could play 30 seconds of it without getting sued.
Can you get sued from it, though? It's just
I don't know.
It's a poem. Wow, that's loud.
I wrote this on the way down here to this Sony studio, and it has to be done in this voice.
Oh, MTV Unplugged. I hope you keep our minds well bugged. Sometimes while watching the Big M, I become so bored, viewing videos from the horde, bare-chested men who wax poetic, saying things that sound prophetic. It all makes me...
I wish you could play the whole thing.
He's in the Henry Rollins outfit, the all
Sure,
black,
yeah.
and he's got all the
He's
tattoos.
amazing.
I love his
He's one of
I
my
love the
heroes.
voice. He's using this robot voice,
Dude.
because everything's cookie cutter. It's MTV, so to MTV. I never heard it
Yeah.
before. I think you did
I
send
don't
it to us.
remember that
Yeah.
at all. And then the other weird one was somehow fucking Dennis Leary got an MTV Unplugged.
I
Remember-
kind of remember this.
remember
'Cause at
Dennis-
least he
Was
had
it
a
the
song.
asshole era?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he sings the song Asshole.
He was a huge deal.
He tries to cover Zeppelin.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
I wish I could say the look that I have on my face. if there was a word or something that the word is like, get the fuck out
Hey,
of
here you
here.
go. Here. He starts asking the crowd, like, what do you want to hear? And somebody goes, Zeppelin. Here.
I'm from the land of the ice and the snow and the Eskimo. Hey, where are you from?
Anyway.
I get it. He's a comedian.
He's
I
awesome.
get it. It's
He
great.
was,
yeah.
he was like the guy on
Yeah.
MTV. He did all his commercials
Yeah.
and everything, but it was like, who the fuck gave him an MTV Unplugged special?
Just
He did a whole show
I
by
mean,
himself.
I could see him
He had
doing
a band. He had a whole band.
I can see him
That was
doing
the whole
like 5
band.
minutes, like maybe like 10 minutes,
Right.
with some kind of
Right, play the asshole song and move
yeah,
on.
yeah.
But I get what he's doing. He's a comedian. Like, it was
annoying.
funny.
It was
No,
annoying.
he is annoying.
All right.
But
He's an asshole.
So that's the weird stuff that we went through all these other shows and we pulled together some kind of like stuff that we thought was cool. So I'm going to start kind of moving through it. We can spend as much time as we want.
okay.
The first one that was Aerosmith, and these are in alphabetical order, not
Okay.
chronological order. Aerosmith was on the first season of the show.
They were awesome.
I
They
do
were great.
not remember this
Yeah,
at
I
all.
remember it. Yeah.
I remember them doing it because they did Train Kept a Rolling on
And-
there, and it was like the first time I ever heard it.
And you told me like this is one of an artist to look at, and I looked at their set list, and they covered "Smokestack Lightning" by Howlin' Wolf.
Nice.
It's
And
probably the
we've-
first time we ever heard that song.
And we've talked extensively about Howlin' Wolf. We might have talked about Howlin' Wolf more than any other artist on this show. So I thought maybe we'll play a little bit of that. So here's 30 seconds of "Smokestack Lightning."
Can't you hear me calling? Can't you hear me calling your name? Tell your daddy and your mama that I miss her. Tell your sister and your brother that I kiss her. Tell your mama and your daddy that I kiss her. Oh, give her one time. Ooh, I'm on.
They're an awesome blues
Yeah,
band.
It's classic Steven Tyler.
That does not sound
No,
like the
no,
Howlin'
that's what I
Wolf
mean.
song
It's
at all to
classic.
me.
No.
That's an
No.
Aerosmith song.
It's classic Steven Tyler.
It's
doing what he's
Boston-
doing. Yeah,
It's Boston blues.
he's doing what he does. It's good. It's different, but it's good.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I was like I
Yeah,
said,
man.
it doesn't sound like the Howlin' Wolf song. I had to listen
Yeah.
to it like twice and be
Uh-huh.
like, is that really the Howlin' Wolf song? Cause that like, woohoo, like that's Howlin'
Yeah.
Wolf's like the best part of the song.
But I always give Steven Tyler credit. He always does his own thing, and it sounds great. Like like he has his own way of approaching like tunes.
I loved it. I watched the whole thing on YouTube and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, it was awesome.
yeah,
It was great.
the whole. I remember the whole performance, like everything about it.
I was like, how the hell, why didn't they ever release that?
Yeah,
It was just great.
yeah, it's
They should.
unreal.
Hopefully they will one day because
All right.
they do like Janie's Got a Gun on there. They do a bunch of songs.
Yeah, they're bluesy best. All right, just keep on rolling. And an artist I thought was really weird that was on MTV Unplugged was Aha. But Aha was
Really?
on in 2017.
Wow.
And right. and
Yeah,
like,
what country was that?
Yeah,
Like
was it-
Germany or
it
some
was America.
shit?
And I'm like, I think we talked about them before. I had a couple Aha albums. I know a little bit more
They
about
have
their
more than
catalog.
one album?
Yeah.
I know. I made the same face.
I knew a little bit more about their catalog than anybody else, but they covered the song. And I thought it was a really cool version. So I was like, let me just play 15 seconds of it. We just move on.
I'll be coming for your love, okay, and take on me. Take me on. I'll be gone.
I just thought it was really interesting.
Dude,
like,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that version, that on YouTube has 67 million views.
Fucking right. It should.
I was like,
Like, this should.
It's probably going to reamp that song again.
Right. I was like, I like
Yeah.
that more than a fucking Weezer cover of it. I
Absolutely.
thought it was really cool.
I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like I read about that when I was doing my research for this show. I didn't know how awesome it was, though.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
I said, we talked about that in the MTV episode about how that song is like the
Humongous.
pinnacle
Yeah.
of just really cool that they swung back around 30 years later and they did this really cool, super, super, super slow version of it.
Great songs never die, dude.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
true.
Tori Amos, we talked about her a little bit. We, as we were sharing our notes, we were like, she covered Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it turns out that she covered that for something completely different.
It was like,
And it wasn't for, it was like the B-side for,
it was just like, it was like the afternoon special of MTV at the moment.
yeah, it was something else that she did. She did cover on her MTV Unplugged. She covered I'm on Fire by Springsteen,
Yeah.
which was,
Did she?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got 10 seconds of that.
Hey, little girl, you didn't go and leave you all alone. I got a bad
You know who likes Tori Amos?
Rob?
No. Well, yeah.
For the record, no.
No, like Kate Bush
Yeah.
loving motherfuckers.
But
Yeah.
What do you think of Tori Amos?
I did. Well, before I'm not a fan, But I read about this show. So she started recording the show, and with 2 songs in, she left the stage. She went behind the stage and said something's not right. So when they recorded the show, they had the lights on the crowd. So they had the crowd's reaction or anything like that. And it was really freaking out. It's because she doesn't tour like that. So they moved all the lights down, focused down on her. And then she was comfortable enough to proceed in the show.
Because she's a fucking lunatic.
She's a lunatic. But I'm not a fan. I was kind of force-fed her in the 90s.
She sucks.
You know, she does. Like,
Rob, the warden is shaking his head.
Absolutely. No, I can't stand her. I never liked her.
So you regret the tattoo in your ass you have at Tori Amos.
I told you.
She's very talented.
She definitely has something different going for
Some
her.
of, like-
all the emo kids maybe does have something happy to look at besides something like The Cure. At least her songs are a little uplifting a little bit.
Oh, that's a great connecting the dot from The Cure to her is a great point. Like Cornflake Girl was cool. She had a couple. Then she got really weird on like the Boys for Pele album, when she was like, the fairies need to be thrown in the volcano. And
yeah, she's out there. Like, I give her all the props in the world. It's just not my thing. She's very talented. You can't take that away from her.
Yeah.
But I understand how people do like her. It's just not my thing.
I dated a girl in college who was like really, really into her. Had all like the obscure, like the bootleg shit that she did beforehand.
Her fans are dedicated. My friend Emil, he's hugely dedicated to her.
Is she still making music? Is she still?
I'm sure she
always
is.
touring.
Yeah,
she's always doing weird shit.
I'm going to look up her.
She's a pure artist, man. Like, I'm sure she is.
I'm sure she hasn't been back since the pandemic, but
yeah.
I'm looking up her.
Canadian? Is she Canadian?
No, she's American.
An alien.
She's almost 60 now.
Holy shit.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, we're
45.
I think I'm the youngest one in this room right now.
Right. She has come out. Wow. She came out with, I don't know. When do you want to draw the line? She came out with 2 albums in 2009, 2011, 2012, 2014, 2017, and 2021. So she's still churning out music. She's just not doing her thing.
Her fans are like cult.
They're diehards.
It's like a cult following.
Yeah. So
good for her, though.
So, all right, man, let's talk about Fiona Apple. So this was Ryan. This was on your list.
Let's talk about another one. Another like crazy lunatic person.
I love Fiona Apple. I love her.
Really talented.
Extraordinary Machine. No. Extraordinary Machine is an amazing album. She is amazing. I've seen her live, and she's fantastic.
She should be like in a dive bar in a corner
that's
playing
her whole
the
thing.
blues.
That's her whole thing. That's where she's going after. Her new album, she's kind of falling into a cliche of herself. But if you never listen to her, if you ever listened to her,
she got a bad rap of being like
she's a wacko.
Looney Tunes.
She's a wacko.
It's crazy.
Dude, but Extraordinary Machine is a fantastic album.
But she covered on her MTV Unplugged. She covered Hendrix.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
So she covered Angel by Hendrix.
Nice.
And she flat out says, like, if you like Hendrix, you may hate me.
Yeah.
So here's 30 seconds of it.
Angel, come on down from heaven yesterday. Stayed with me just long enough to rescue me. And she told me a story yesterday.
So, Rob, you were just shaking your head the whole time that was playing.
It's funny. I was going to say, like, Tori Amos, we were talking about before, kind of reminds me of like a Fiona Apple. With I just don't get that whole like vibe. But like, I think of like her song was a Criminal that came, and I'm just like, I'm watching. Have you ever seen the music video? It's like
child porn.
Yeah, right.
That was the whole thing.
The video ruined her.
Yeah. The only thing I kept thinking when I see that video is like, honey, you need to eat a sandwich or something. Like,
that's a great point, dude. Like, she got consumed by MTV trying to make her a sex symbol. You know, she's got that weird, like, she's really thin and she's got that.
I don't think she's attractive at all.
I don't either, but they tried to sell that, like, waifish, underage kind of, like, that video was like.
It was like a Levi's ad.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. You're 1,000 times correct. I think she is attractive because her voice is amazing.
That video was like exploitive almost. She had like feet in her face and she's in her underwear. But yeah, dude, her voice is like powerful and sexy and has nothing to do with like her physicality.
No,
it was
but
like
she's a mess.
Can I say that I fucking love that version of Angel?
Yeah.
And you never heard it, right? I just said I'm going to play that. You were like,
I don't even like her, but man, what a great fucking version of that was.
She can fucking sing, man.
But you're talking about like Tori Amos, hardcore. Like her fans are diehard. Like, go. Don't. You're not going to
No,
go
I'm
see
not
her.
going. I'm not
But
gonna listen to
what
her
a
after this
great,
show.
great show. What a great show.
All right, let me keep on rolling. So, Phil Collins. So, and I love this.
Go ahead.
So Phil Collins did MTV Unplugged in 1994, but it was only ever released in Europe because nobody gave a shit about it in the United States.
What was on it?
Who cares?
Yeah, just that was what was on it.
I don't even know. I didn't even
I
look
bet
it up.
all those songs from Tarzan he did was on that shit.
It was fucking terrible. So the Eagles. So, Joe Walsh plays on their show, and he's on here later. And, he plays Desperado. Don Henley goes batshit.
Yeah, he goes crazy.
And cause he's real, Don Henley's an asshole.
Sure.
And, but when the Eagles finally get back together and they do the Hell Freezes Over tour,
That was a big deal.
They hired the guys who did MTV Unplugged to produce it. So it wasn't technically an MTV Unplugged episode.
It was the Hell Freezes Over thing,
Yeah,
but it was
was-
only on MTV though.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was produced by the same people.
Wait, you're telling me I remember when the Hell Freezes Over tour, they did like a live, kind of stage thing.
acoustic.
That was an MTV Unplugged episode?
It wasn't an MTV Unplugged episode, but it was the same the crew. They hired the producers to do it.
Okay.
So it was it doesn't count when I rattled off those episodes that went platinum, it doesn't count, but it's the same people.
It was like its own special. It was like its own MTV special, basically.
And that was, dude, again, man, I don't want to get into it too much because it's not like an MTV thing. That was that was huge, man. That was
when they got back together.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Right. The joke was they said when Hell Freezes Over,
Yeah.
right?
They say technically we never broke up.
Right.
They said.
That was the Page and Plant thing.
Yeah.
Getting back together.
But Joe Walsh did do Unplugged by himself.
He did. Yeah.
And it was called Joe Walsh and Friends. So Joe Walsh was kind of in our space at that point. So he showed up with a friend that played bass. And they were like, yeah, well, didn't you bring any of your musician friends, your celebrity friends? He's like, no. So they scramble when the producers scramble, and down a couple studios down the street, Dr. John was playing. So he ran in and he's like, hey, we're recording Joe Walsh. He needs friends.
And
so Dr. John came down and then played the gig with him, and
that was
his
good.
friend.
That was great, Joe Walsh. Alcoholic, super drunk.
It's my
Joe
favorite
Walsh.
Joe Walsh.
So
my favorite Joe Walsh.
I have some. You want to
Yeah,
play a little bit of it?
Yeah.
And the video is he's wearing his lime green shirt. He's got the enormous push broom mustache. Here's a little bit of Life's Been Good.
I am not an Eagles fan, but I love me some Joe Walsh. I love Joe Walsh.
I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles more than you guys do. Joe Walsh is awesome. One thing too, it's just as we were playing this, I was like, man, the hiss in the headphone, because somebody put that on YouTube off of recording the VH1.
It's not made for a listenable MP3 or something.
Right. How many times all these clips we've been playing off YouTube, we've been moving the volume up and down.
Yeah.
You're like, holy God, it's blowing you up, and
Trying to catch it.
yeah, the quality's just not there.
We're trying, folks.
It's all we can do, man.
Bruce is trying, everybody.
It's all I can do. So, all right. So that's Joe Walsh. We moved out of order a little bit, but that's cool that Joe Walsh and Eagles go together. Lauryn Hill, man. So I had Lauryn Hill on here, and I don't want to dive too into it, but this Unplugged album is a fucking dumpster fire.
Is there something like a...
Yeah. So let me set the stage real quick. So it was 3 years after her solo album. That solo album was enormous, right?
Yeah.
It was that is a cornerstone of hip hop music. It was 3 years after. The record label was salivating of dude, you gotta give us something. And she hasn't done anything since then. She decided she wanted to do the MTV Unplugged. She said she had just started learning how to play guitar. So they put her up there. She doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. Said she plays 3-chord. So an anonymous person in the record industry said he wanted to throw himself out of a window when he heard it because it was so terrible. And they said but they had to put it out because they needed new music from her. So the album is whatever it is, like 15 songs. There's 7 interludes of her talking. There's an intro and an outro. So I'll play 30 seconds of a song, but as she plays this, she flat out just goes, I don't have a name for this song yet. If y'all got an idea, just yell it out and I'll name the song. This is like just how thrown together shitty this is.
How unprepared she is.
And whatever the interview I was reading from the record industry guy who said he was going to jump out a window, he was like, if this wasn't Lauryn Hill, we would never, ever release this. But it was like, we needed something from her. So I probably won't even get to the song, but here's her just talking.
They don't even really have titles yet, so if you have any suggestions, just, raise your hand, so I'll call them like a line in the song. This one, we refer to as Adam Lives in Theory. And when I refer to Adam, I'm really speaking about all of humanity, without exception of anybody, And I know that, a lot of the content in the songs is very heavy, but, see, fantasy is what people want, but reality is what they need. And I've just retired from the fantasy part because I realized that.
So she's struggled with mental illness and bipolar disorder over her career.
So that's her excuse.
Who hired her? I wonder if whoever got her to do the show got fired from MTV.
It feels exploitive.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
listening to it is like
she should just get back with the Fugees if she wants to be exploited.
I was always amazed by that. They never did that.
The Fugees are reuniting.
Are they?
Awesome. That's on our stay tuned for our music news episode.
Nice.
So
nice.
All right, I'm gonna keep rolling because I don't think very highly of Lauryn Hill. Yeah. And we've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, Hole.
God.
Hole. So, Hole did MTV Unplugged.
I don't remember that at all.
Well, okay.
Continued as Courtney.
Well, then, so you might enjoy this. So, they did MTV Unplugged 1995. Kurt Cobain had been dead for less than a year.
She's a fucking piece of shit.
They did the song You Know You're Right. Remember the song that came out posthumously from Nirvana?
Yeah.
They did it years and years and years. They did it on MTV Unplugged, but she called it a song called You've Got No Right. So let me play a little bit of it because I thought this was pretty interesting.
That is interesting. She knew about the song and
what a clown.
Walking in the past, always knew we'd come to this. Things have never been so. I have never felt so.
God.
So you guys don't,
Dude, I am in utter shock.
None of the three of you remember that.
Dude, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I can't believe this.
I fucking love that Nirvana song.
That's 7 years before
God,
the Nirvana album.
she is an asshole.
She is lower than low. She has no fucking
She's a
soul.
scumbag.
She has no personality. She has no talent. And she
Dude,
just
she
proved
is a
it.
fucking
She took
asshole.
a great song that she knew about and she fucking exploited it.
I feel like my job tonight is done because I uncovered that.
I
Nice.
am fucking disgusted.
But that,
All right.
dude, we are music nerd, right? We
Yeah.
study this shit. We listened to it. We lived it. And none of us remembered that. I don't remember that.
I don't remember watching Hole. So
I mean, she was probably one of the most hated people in music at
still
the time.
is.
And she still
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, dude, we were working with Sam Goody, and I remember in every page for one episode, like the magazine they handed out, they had a picture of her with the little
Everybody
the
hated
circle
her.
with the line through it, like just how much they hated her.
oh yeah,
I didn't think it was possible for me to hate her anymore. Yeah. Holy
she's a
shit.
waste.
What a waste.
Man, I don't believe, like,
I can't believe that.
I didn't either. I don't remember it either. And I was like, holy shit, really, man? It was that.
And Dave Grohl just sitting back going, "What the fuck?"
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I was like, I had like, my only two things a whole were like, she sucks,
Yeah.
and Melissa Off the Mar was hot.
She
That
was
the only,
hot.
like, that was
She
the only-
was.
That was the only.
She was hot.
All right.
Who?
The bass player.
She was.
Melissa
She's a
Off the
redhead.
Mar. Yeah.
She went off to go play for
Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
So, all right, man, I'm going to keep moving. We got a handful of artists. Korn.
Yes.
Korn was Korn doing MTV Unplugged was bizarre.
It is bizarre, but it worked. What they did, it worked.
And they also had two different musicians perform with them. One was Amy Lee from Evanescence.
Mm-hmm.
She can fucking sing.
Yes, she can.
She can really. And the other one was Robert Smith from The Cure.
Yes.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, it is pretty fucking awesome.
Which I don't remember that at all. And Ryan put something on the playlist. Let me play a little bit of Robert Smith from The Cure
with Korn.
There's so much around me, such a lack of passion. I thought it would be fun and games, fun and games. Instead, it's all the same. It's all the same. I want something to do. Need to feel the sickness in you. I feel the breathing as it's leaving me. No, not again. It's quite deceiving.
I love it.
It's just bizarre.
That's god awful.
I don't know. I
it's
love
god-awful.
Very whole.
I love John Davis. I think his voice is unique. Nobody sounds like him.
I agree with you, but I think that this platform, this show,
You have to listen to the rest of
I
the
guess so.
Unplugged.
I guess.
You
I
have to
appreciate it.
There's another thing on there that I put on there. Got the Life is on the playlist.
Yeah, the bass on the live out. Let me just play a little bit of it.
I love it.
That was great. That was great.
I like that
I'll
because
give
that is like
definitely.
That's
you
why I wanted
completely
to-
reinvented this. That almost made me think of the Alice in Chains.
Yeah,
completely different version.
It's a great. I was listening to it this week, and it is a great album. Like, even MTV put it out.
I'm not a big fan of Korn.
I love
but
it.
I was like,
Neither
that
am I.
version
Never
was
happened.
cool.
I never knew they did an Unplugged.
I always loved Korn. I saw them on their first tour, and I was like, "This band's the shit right here."
They definitely made their mark, but I never would imagine that they did an Unplugged. It came out well. Like the bass sounded great. That sounded great.
It's just, I mean, there's somebody
Their
played the
drummer.
big.
Yeah, the
big-
rhythmic. Like
Their
it was
drummer
great.
is really
It was
unfucking
great.
believable. He plays all this all this roted drum kind of shit going on.
I'm going to keep on rolling. I'm going to skip live. I want to talk about
Thank you,
them.
Jesus.
I'm going to skip about them.
I really like that live episode.
Okay. All right. I'm going to talk about live for a second then. So live they were one of my favorite bands from the 90s, and they did the MTV Unplugged. And Doug, I had the experience that you did where I remember like when it was going to be on TV, I blocked out my calendar. I made my girlfriend came over. We sat in the living room. We put it on TV, and it was like, I bought the t-shirt that the dude was wearing. They had the candles going on.
Yeah.
And I remember everything. I remember going to like different stores to find the bootleg of it and paying like $40 for the bootleg CD of it in the store.
Wow.
When you couldn't download shit.
There was a great version of that, All Over You. That was a great version of that on Unplugged. That's the one that sticks out in my head.
I had a little bit of Beauty Gray.
Play it.
This is Bruce's band, so you play.
All right. I'll cut it there just in the interest of time. But I was like, yeah, after Springsteen, I've seen them the most. I've seen them almost 20 times.
No, they're
in
great
concert.
live.
You and I went
Yeah.
the one time, a couple times. And
They're
saw
awesome.
Them.
I remember when that came out. They were at the height of their career when they did the Unplugged.
Yeah, and they kind of flamed out after that, but
Sure.
it was just a really
Yeah.
big deal.
So it's like Throwing Copper then. I guess
Throwing
that's-
Copper was one of my favorite
Great
albums.
album.
So, all right. So
Great record.
the next artist that I had on I don't know if you guys know this. So this is Maxwell's Unplugged.
Yeah,
So
he's really talented.
there's two covers on his album. One is a Kate Bush song, which we're not going to talk about. And the other one is He covered "Closer" by Nine Inch Nails. You guys know this?
No. I've never heard it.
No.
All right, I'm gonna play this. This is a fucking amazing cover. Right. He made a soul song out of and close. I want to fuck you. Listen to this.
So we can do the freaking. Oh, yeah. Let me feel your soul. Help me get away from myself. So bad I want you. Oh, baby. Yeah. Help myself. Gotta get closer. Ooh, so good. Baby, let me, baby. Help myself. Gotta get closer. I wanna love you like an animal.
His audience has no idea that's a Nine Inch Nails song. There's no way.
Dude, that is
I guess so.
That's a Marvin.
That's weird.
That's a Marvin Gaye song.
There's people like, oh man, but this is a great song. Is this new?
No.
It's
No.
great. I love it.
It's weird. I started laughing in a couple parts. Whatever.
Yeah, other than it went over the head of everybody in the
Everybody
audience.
knew, that's why I'm laughing. Great. I'm like, oh, they don't even know. Like, I want to love you like an animal.
I want to flush the toilet.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'm gonna keep on rolling. So I have no clip here. Midnight Oil.
They're a great band.
They did MTV Unplugged, and at the end when the camera stopped rolling, like it was on the video, they did a cover of "We Gotta Get Out of Here" by the Animals.
Nice.
Which I was like, that would probably be pretty cool. I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked everywhere. I went on like torrent sites and YouTube. I couldn't find it.
But Midnight Oil, what a great band. I've always liked them since day one. Like
they
when
were
I was
cool.
when I was a young kid.
And,
because they were different. You know,
they had a great sound.
They did.
Is that the band that does Beds Are?
Beds are burning.
He's he was like in Parliament or something. He got he became elected official.
Yeah, he was a smart dude.
Yeah. All right. So if somebody out there listening finds it or has it, there's not much on the internet I can't find between Fish concerts or pornography. And it eluded me. So, if you have it, send it to me. I'd love it. The next artist is Oasis.
Yes.
This is
funny.
This is interesting.
Oasis, 1996, right? They're kind of at the top of their game. They're really popular. Liam Gallagher, who's the singer for Oasis, does not sing in the show.
No.
So the story that I heard was during they start doing rehearsals. Liam shows up and he says like his throat hurts. And then the next day he shows up and he's wearing the same outfit, but he shows up a little later and he's like, he sings a little bit and he's like, he walks out and tells his brother, Noel wrote all the lyrics. He's like, you sing it. And then 2 days later, Liam showed up again wearing the same outfit. And the producers are starting to realize like, you kind of smell like alcohol.
Yeah, he's shit-faced.
And you haven't shaved. And what the fuck? So they said, and then an hour, so they get ready to do the show. They all show up and Liam isn't there. And an hour before the show starts, Liam rolls up and he's like, my throat hurts. I can't sing. But they're like, you're shit-faced wasted.
Yeah.
He's fucking 3 sheets of the wind. Can't do it. So they send Noel out to do the show,
parts,
which is kind of cool. Like, hey,
because he wrote all the songs, dude.
Right. So he wrote it. So he gets his, and then as they're doing the show, at some point, Noel goes like, "Ed, man, shut up," because his brother is in the audience,
hacking him,
drinking champagne and heckling his brother, saying, "You suck."
Was it Champagne Supernova?
Maybe. But I remember it being so like typical to Oasis.
Oh, sure. And you know what's really funny? I saw them like a week before they did this Unplugged. They played the Wells Fargo Center here in Philadelphia. I think it was called the FU Center back then for the First Union. And actually, they were the first concert in the
FU Center.
Yeah.
Noel Gallagher did MTV Unplugged again like recently.
Did he?
Like within the last like 10 years.
Okay.
And he walked out and I watched that and I was like, this is pretty good. I'm like, wait, this isn't the show that I'm thinking of when he was getting heckled and all that other kind of crap. So, I don't know. So I have a YouTube performance of the whole show where it's not broken up into single tracks. Maybe I could try to find,
telling him to shut up.
I could find Wonderwall. Like, I don't know what
you can play any, they're all big songs.
gonna be the day they were gonna throw it back to you. By now, you should have somehow realized.
Well, like in the beginning of that, because Noel is singing, they changed the key right before they started saying. I think he said B minor. I don't know the key they sing it in, but that's interesting.
Yeah, it's probably to fit his voice better.
Yeah.
To call it off on the cuff like that, like automatically, like you're doing a live show. Like, okay, play it in B minor.
Right. And I said they're a band where like they had a different singer.
Yeah.
When they came out.
Exactly.
To MTV Unplugged.
They're a talented band. I always liked them. I jumped on board with them automatically. Like, I don't know if it was because of the Beatles thing or whatever, but I love Oasis. I think they're great.
I put them in the like, who's more dysfunctional, them or the Black Crowes? You know, like
They are.
Who's the more brother dysfunctional, the Black Crowes, Oasis, or you guys?
Oasis.
The Prisoners of Rock and
We've
Roll.
gotten better with age.
All right, let's keep on rolling, dude. We could have spent a couple minutes on it. Pearl Jam. So, Doug.
The Pearl Jam thing was interesting. When they were asked to do Unplugged, they were very new on the music scene. They already had like 2 songs out that were singles, Alive and Even Flow. But what was really interesting about that is that they recorded the Mariah Carey Unplugged the same day. So
On the same plate? Like,
in the same place.
Like
So
just clear them out?
They cleared everybody out, and Pearl Jam didn't start their set until midnight. So all the Pearl Jam fans had to wait outside and wait for the Mariah Carey fans to go. And so they went in. They recorded this, surprisingly, I found this out today, at Kaufman Astoria Studios. This is where they record Sesame Street.
Really?
Yeah. So I was really,
Okay.
I thought that was really, really interesting. MTV, they completely destroyed the set. They originally came on with Oceans, but they started off with like Even Flow, Alive, and then Jeremy. And the whole feel of the show was kind of like, messed with because of production. But this really like,
So they recut the order in which they were recorded?
Yeah. They recut the order the way it was presented on TV. And they, like we said, they just put this out on Spotify but they put it back in the original playlist.
I remember it coming out, and I remember hearing a song you guys didn't even mention, State of Love and Trust.
Yeah.
And that's the song that made me a Pearl Jam fan right off the bat. I put that on playlist. Can we give it a listen?
Yeah, dude. Here's 30 seconds of State of Love and Trust from it. Live MTV Unplugged.
State of love and trust is a force they down to pretend. Sin still plays and preaches, but the half an empty chord. And the signs are passing and grab the wheel and read it.
That was the song on the single soundtrack, right?
Yeah,
if
it
I remember
was.
that right?
You know what pissed me off was I ran out and bought 10 after I seen that this Unplugged, and that wasn't on the album.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, "Where's this fucking song at?" And then it was on
On the single soundtrack. I bought the single soundtrack 'cause I remember going to Tower Records in here in Wood.
Yeah.
From Alice in Chains.
That was a great
I remember walking over with my
soundtrack.
dad and just going like, I need this. Buy me this right now.
But here you go. Here's Pearl Jam playing a song on MTV that's never been heard by fans.
It's never been on an album.
It's never been on an album because they only had a few singles out at that point. And, you know, they originally opened with Oceans, totally cut. But my favorite song on here is Porch that they do. It's great. They close the show off with it.
The thing that I remember most is Eddie Vedder writing pro-choice on his arm.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
that and him
Yeah.
trying to start a little mayhem.
Yeah.
With his chair. He
I'd
was like-
forgotten that.
Yeah. That's what I remember most.
Yeah,
about
that
it.
was really famous. And that was during Porch.
I feel like their ascension was like the 1-2 punch was like 10 and this. It was like right like they were on their way up and then they did this and it was like, okay, cool, here's a whole nother way to see the band.
Well,
You know,
they say this show blasted into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like it was like a rocket ship.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, I was
ran
too.
I ran out and bought it.
But it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite unplugs. And
I think it was one of the most important ones. But
Absolutely.
it's something they just released in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they own the rights to it. And
I was so
they
happy
put it
they
out.
released it. I was like
It's about time.
Yeah.
I think we had bootlegs of it. For
Yeah,
years.
I always had bootlegs of it, but to hear it so clear, is great.
Right, like soundboard recordings.
Yeah.
All right, we
Awesome.
good?
Yeah.
We good with that?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, it was, out of all of these, that is in the top like five or six.
It's
like
the most
important.
important.
Important ones.
Yeah. It's that one and the Clapton one in my book.
Nirvana.
They're the most important. Then the Nirvana,
Nirvana,
of course. Yeah.
Nirvana.
Yeah.
I think
Sure.
Nirvana's the most important.
Couple of these are the Page and Plant one, the Kiss
Yeah.
one. Like
Yeah,
they're just
they're
ones that are
just
like
so-
they're pivotal
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
And Pearl Jam is definitely in there. And the fact that they're in the second end of the show doesn't mean that we're discounting it. Speaking of people that need to be discounted, REM. So REM did two
They got two of them?
Unplugged. They did one in 91. They did one in 2001.
Oh God.
And
They play the same songs?
Playing that in 91, he's got that big stupid hat,
Yeah,
and
he
he's
sucks.
saying he has the lyrics on a piece of paper, and he says, "I don't know the words," and he puts it on a stand. And it was like when I saw them in concert, when it was the worst concert I've ever saw, he had a stand with all the lyrics on it.
What a douchebag.
He's a
And I was like,
jerk-off.
put this shit on a monitor,
There's like
dude.
fans that know the word for
Right.
word for word.
So,
get the fuck
all right,
out of
fuck
here.
it. Let's move on.
They
So
suck.
they did two episodes. Springsteen. So Springsteen did MTV Unplugged in 1993, but every one of the songs was plugged in.
Yeah, it was called Plugged.
Yeah. He did one
Yeah.
song unplugged called Redheaded Woman, which is about giving oral sex to his wife.
Nice.
Which is,
Go down on Patty.
so the album, when it was put out, it was called MTV Plugged instead of
It's supposed to
MTV
be
Unplugged.
unplugged, and they like
Yeah.
slashed out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So here's,
Listen up, stud, your life's been wasted till you got down on your knees and taste. Well, listen up, stud, your life's been wasted till you got down on your knees and tasted a red-headed woman. A red-headed woman. It takes a red-headed woman. Get a dirty job done.
that's it. So that's a song he wrote about
That's
going
awesome.
down on his wife.
They,
and she goes out on stage with him, and he still sings it.
I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't remember that one on that album.
Oh,
Check
Reddit.
it out. Yeah.
He still plays it, and so yeah,
I like the vibe to it.
He said, I mean, the E Street Band was all broken up, and
Yeah,
he
I
didn't like the
remember.
way it sounded.
Does
and
he do Rave? I'm sorry. Does he do Light of Day on this?
Yes.
Yeah,
He does.
Yes, he does.
And they don't really have a recording of him doing that in the studio ever,
no.
No.
because that was in that Joan Jett movie
Yeah.
and Michael J. Fox, and I've always loved that song.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear him say because he wrote it.
That was around the time he was doing 57 channels. and
Yeah.
there's nothing
Yeah, he
on.
was living
Yeah.
in L.A., and
Yeah.
it was like shitty Springsteen,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
you know, or less awesome Springsteen.
I was going to say, you came a
today's-
long way.
Today's actually Bruce Springsteen's birthday, too.
Happy birthday,
birthday,
Bruce.
Bruce.
So,
We got a cake for you.
yes. All right, we got one artist left, and that is Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their Unplugged album,
It
or
was
their Unplugged
awesome.
performance, I don't know why this was never released.
I think they couldn't get a contract together with them.
Yeah.
It,
But I remember
it was too good not to be released.
because they did Creep, right? That was like the big single on MTV for this,
Yeah,
wasn't
but
it?
I think it was a
Cracker, like everything on there was cool. So I had Cracker Man on here.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
play 30 seconds of that. That's actually what they open with. That,
Rooted in.
like, we were just playing this and we were like, man, how was that never released?
Yeah, I'm
as a-
amazed by
I'm
that.
sure there was intricacies
Some
of the
kind of-
music industry and not anything to do with them. Because also, like, remember, like, I think, Ryan, you and I, we saw them a couple times.
Yeah.
And it would always be like, during the show, they would stop and they would do an acoustic set in the middle, and they had this acoustic stage that was like suspended up, and it would come down on like cables.
That's
and
amazing.
then they would do this really intimate show, and that would go back up, and it became like a really, like, I don't know, I saw them 5 or 6 times.
I've never seen them.
And
I've
this-
never seen them.
Yeah, I saw them several times.
I would
during-
love to see them.
And that was a big part of this. And it was like, I can't help but think that the MTV show propelled that.
Yeah. I think it like gave them like the idea, like, wow, we're more than just this rock and roll band.
Sure.
It like
We could open up our wings. And,
it like legitimized them as music. Like that's Cracker Man's a cool song, but hearing that I was like, that's fucking bitchin', dude.
Yeah.
That's a really cool.
But I feel that this show did the same thing for Pearl Jam as they did for Stone Temple Pilots. I feel like it has the same.
Completely agree.
Maybe it will
Absolutely.
come out. Like the Pearl Jam one just came out. Maybe this one will come out.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
It was just really cool, man. I was like, and that was when we were kicking around the ideas and this came up on the list, I was like, oh, dude, I would totally remember that. And I listened to it and I was like, I haven't heard that in 20 years.
Yeah.
But it was like still really cool.
I kind of remember them playing like some of this stuff on the radio too, like some like on that Y100 and stuff.
They also recorded them doing like some acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't unplugged. It was like in some other studios.
All right, cool. The only other note I had was Neil Young, and I don't have any clips from Neil Young other than he started doing the show and he got so frustrated he got up and said, "Fuck it." I walked out in front of an audience.
He walked out the front doors.
Yes,
it was was the studio Ed Sullivan Studios, and he walked out.
New York?
He walked out the front door and walked right down Broadway, dude. Yeah,
and he said like he wouldn't let them release the recording. He did another one 2 months later.
Yeah,
MTV at home. So MTV brought back MTV Unplugged during the pandemic.
Okay.
Let me know how many of these artists you know. My over-under is 2. Wyclef.
Yeah, I know.
John. Shaggy.
Yeah.
Jewel.
Okay.
Monsta X.
No. I have no idea who that is.
Alyssa Cara.
No idea.
Phineas. Bozzy.
I know who that is.
Melissa Etheridge. So you know like 4.
Yeah. Well, the Melissa Etheridge one, I'm sorry, the Melissa Etheridge one was a big show. I remember that being pretty
That
big.
was just recently.
Was it?
So
yeah, right? The Melissa Etheridge one was just
it was like in the last 12 months.
No shit.
Yeah.
All these. So okay.
Yeah. She had a storyteller.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm confusing.
So,
yeah.
Second thoughts.
Oh, is it time for second thoughts?
Go ahead.
Are we going to say
You've been waiting
anything?
all night about this.
So we got some feedback on our episode on Exile on Main Street. David Gann from Japan.
Is he from Japan?
Yes.
He just lives there. His name's David. And he's from Japan.
He wrote us a very long message, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here is some of it. Guys, I'm glad you love this album. He's talking about the Exile on Main Street. Guys, I'm glad you love this album. I love it too, but this episode is a laundry list of errors. I almost need to make my own podcast called Prisoners of Rock and Roll Errata. Here are just a few of the mistakes you made. And I'm skipping. Number 3. You don't know who did the backing vocal on Gimme Shelter, and you thought she might be one of the female vocalists on Exile on Main Street? Wow. If you knew anything about what happened to her as a result of coming in late one night to do that, she miscarried later that night or the next day, so no. My response. Yes, we know the story of Mary Clayton and how she had a miscarriage shortly after doing the haunting backgrounds on Gimme Shelter in the middle of the night. We told the story on episode 5, The Rolling Stones versus the Beatles. We didn't know if she continued doing the background work after the Stones. Beyond that, Mary Clayton did perform on Exile on Main Street. She is on the personnel listed on the album. So there you go. Point number 4 that David made. Yes, Angela Davis did buy those weapons. She did not go into a judge's office and, quote, blow him away. Let me set the record straight on this. In 1970, a white corrections officer shot 3 black prisoners at Soledad Prison during a fight. Shortly after that, 3 inmates named George Jackson, Felita Drumgo, and George Clutchy murdered a white corrections officer in retaliation. Later that year, George Jackson's 17-year-old brother decided to hold up a courthouse and forced the government to release his brother. He smuggled 3 weapons that were owned by Angela Davis into the courthouse where James McCann was being tried for stabbing another corrections officer. George Jackson tossed a gun to McClain and freed 2 other prisoners. The 4 of them took a judge, the deputy district attorney, and 3 jurors hostage and demanded that the 3 guys on trial were released. They taped the business end of a sawed-off shotgun to the judge's neck. The kidnappers forced the hostages into a van in an attempt to flee the area, and they subsequently got in a shootout with police. By the time it was done, the judge and 3 of the 4 kidnappers were dead, the deputy DA was paralyzed, and 1 of the other hostages were shot. Again, those guns were owned by Angela Davis. We didn't get into the nuances because this is a music commentary podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Point number 7. The deal with Richard's wife getting that young girl to do heroin was much later. That is just not true. Here is a quote from Tony Sanchez, a.k.a. Spanish Tony. He was Keith Richards' assistant, and he wrote the book, Up and Down with the Rolling Stones, My Roller Coaster Ride with Keith Richards. And I quote, "Our time in France came to an end when Anita tried to persuade the teenage daughter of the chef at Nicolette to accept an injection of heroin. And if you want to be a real asshole about it, Anita Pallenberg had 3 kids with Keith Richards, but never married him. It wasn't his wife." So thus ended his comments. The list goes on, but he said he had to get back to work, and he told us to, come on, guys, you could do better. So, David, we love you. There were some factual inaccuracies in the things that you pointed out, and hopefully we corrected you. If you want to reach out, we'd be happy to send you some stickers.
Dude, I'm just happy that you listened to the show.
2-hour show, you listen to it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you listening to the whole thing. We love you, man.
I spent 2 hours researching the counterpoints to it.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
If you ever, David, if you ever want to be our guest, yeah.
So, all right. So the music news. Rolling Stone releases the new list of top 500 songs. Rolling Stone magazine updated his list of the top 500 songs of all time for the first time in 17 years. It has definitely created some controversy. The top 10 songs on the new list. I'm going to go 10 through 1. Hey Ya by Outkast. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Get Your Freak On by Missy Elliott. Strawberry Fields Forever, The Beatles. What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nirvana. Like a Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan. A Change Gonna Come, Sam Cooke. Fight the Power, Public Enemy. Respect by Aretha Franklin.
Wow.
Like a Rolling Stone was number 1 last year. Number 2 last time was, Like a Rolling Stone was number 1 last time. Number 2 was I Can't Get Enough Satisfaction by the Stones. That is fallen all the way to number 31.
Wow. I don't know. I'm speechless. I think maybe music is evolving that we're not aware of.
They're trying to be politically correct.
No, when you shared this, we're like, we could do a whole episode on this list.
We could, but it's just, tiptoeing through all this.
Yeah,
music is music.
It's art.
Yeah, but like Ryan said, we're a bunch of old guys, so what do we know?
So there's 33 songs from 2001 and later, which means there's 33 songs that dropped off the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to those fucking songs?
Dude,
Missy Elliott beat them out.
The Stone, Satisfaction was number 2 last time. That's number 31. Now, Gimme Shelter is the top Stone song at 31.
They don't
dude,
know what
Rolling
the fuck
Stones sucks,
doing.
dude. We talked about that. They don't know what they're talking about.
They're clowns.
Exactly. Honk honk.
Well, and so that they interview, I started going into who they interviewed and all this other, I got one more story. Band reunions. The moment you've all been waiting for. ABBA announced they had gotten back together 40 years after they broke up. The Swedish pop band has released 2 new songs. They have an album coming out in November, and they're performing a series of digital concerts in London featuring digital versions of themselves. Reuters and ABBA previously have turned down a ton of opportunities to reunite, including somebody offered them $1 billion to go on tour, which I call bullshit.
Yeah.
Did you say digital? They're going to appear digital, so there's going to be cartoons?
So
it's like Tupac.
The Buddy Holly thing that we talked about.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
So they're
Who the hell wants to see that?
It's like a hologram.
I think it
might
be
a hologram. Yeah.
I think it's them to a point, and also digital version of them. So I went down the rabbit hole and I looked up they're doing the shows in London. It's 2 shows a day. And so maybe it's not them. Maybe it is hologrammy kind of stuff. And the tickets were somewhere between 45 and 250 pounds.
People love ABBA, man. People love them.
That's crazy to me.
The Dancing Queen song's huge.
So
I bet that's on the 500 best fucking songs.
I didn't look.
Probably top 100.
I didn't look, but I'll check.
On that fucking list.
And if Swedish shitty pop music isn't your thing, the Fugees have also announced that they're reuniting and will play to celebrate the 25th anniversary of The Score.
It's about time.
Lauryn Hill, Wyclef, and Praz are going to play 7 shows in the United States, as well as gigs in Paris, London, Nigeria, and Ghana. They played a show yesterday.
Did they?
And, they played a pop-up show in Brooklyn, New York.
I wonder how it was.
This is well overdue. This needs to happen.
That's a fantastic album.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about time.
It's time for the Electric Chair, where we kill a song for being terrible. The Electric Chair is sponsored by our friends at Lunacy Brewing Company, 1500 West Kings Highway in Haddon Heights, New Jersey. You can check them out on social media or at lunacybrewingcompany.com. We have decided, since we have a really special guest this week, the Warden, Rob Owens, we've decided we're going to let you be the first person outside of the three of us to send the song to the Electric Chair.
I'm so honored. So we talked about this band earlier. It's one of the first bands that ever appeared on Unplugged, and it was Squeeze. And the only song I ever know that they did was Tempted. Just awful.
I never even knew the name of this band.
But you know this song, right?
Yeah,
like this is
I've been
like
in elevators and doctors' offices.
right. This is that song. This is.
I'm tempted to never come back on the show if I have to listen to this. I'm telling you.
Well, no, we're gonna kill it, Rob. That's what we do here.
Oh, thank God.
Did you know? Did anybody? Can you name a second song by Squeeze?
No.
This song is like 40 years old, right? This is a really old song. This is.
It's 80s, like it's just like the 80s of like offices.
Right. It's like you're going to supermarket.
Yeah.
You're getting your teeth drilled.
This song has haunted us all of our entire lives. It's time to kill it.
But who likes it so much that it's on the radio? All
Right. What the fuck is it? Right.
Contemporary America.
Right. It's like tempted by a fruit of another. Like, okay, dude, stop your wandering eye and pay attention to your spouse and go find Jesus and stop being a piece of shit.
Pretty much.
Kill it.
I have nothing else to say to it. Let's just kill it.
We sentence you to death.
That was a great pick, Rob.
Good job, Rob.
Thank you, sir.
Good job.
You earned your
Man.
keep tonight, sir.
Appreciate it.
As always, we only play 30-second clips on the show because we like doing this show and don't want to get sued into oblivion. So we put together a playlist to go with every episode. We played a ton of stuff that wasn't released commercially. So for this one, we're going to put together a YouTube playlist as well. That just shows how much work we put into the show and how much we love every one of you. Even if you email us and tell us all the things that we did wrong, even though we're right. If you love us as much as we love you, please consider checking us out on social media, hitting that follow button on your favorite podcast platform, and leaving us a 5-star review. If you don't love us, consider starting your own podcast and send us a link, and we'd love to provide our commentary to you. If you have comments, thoughts, or ideas about Prisoners of Rock and Roll, though, you can find us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're online at prisonersofrockandroll.com, and you can email us at prisonersofrockandroll@gmail.com. And if you happen to be visiting Philadelphia for any reason, please stop by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia. Chances are pretty good that you'll find Doug or Ryan on one side of the bar and me or the Warden, Rob Owens, on the other. So that's it. We're going to circle up in 2 weeks. We're going to figure out what we're going to talk about next, and we'll be back. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
It was a lot of fun, and we'll figure out what we're going to talk about next, and we'll be back
later on.
Keep on rocking. Peace out.
I'm just a prisoner.